Chapter 91. A new week, the first update is available. Please recommend it, collect it, thank you. Cough cough, Chen Hao, the boss, coughed awkwardly and hurriedly averted his gaze. He, who was standing and not doing anything, looked down at Helian Wuzi, who was squatting on the ground and sorting out the elixirs. He accidentally saw two snow-white cleavage through the girl's slightly loose collar. This was really an accident, and also purely unintentional. "What's wrong, boss?" Emoyui, who was also squatting on the ground, hurriedly asked. "Nothing." Chen Hao shook his head and said, but secretly scolded in his heart. This guy usually doesn't even fart for 3 to 5 days, but when he shouldn't speak, he interrupted. "Oh," Emoyui replied, and his broken arm that had not recovered yet hugged the big sword that looked even more tattered. His other hand, like Helian Wuzi, continued to pick and sort out the elixirs excitedly. If they knew that the 5 treasured swords and the 5 element spirit roots were all obtained by me, what kind of expression would they have? Looking at the excited looks of the two, Chen Hao couldn't help but smirk in his heart. 5 element spirit roots, the two of them should have guessed that I have already obtained 5 treasured swords, haha, even I didn't expect that. The truth was indeed so. At that time, Chen Hao only knew that the most inconspicuous ring at the core of the rune was worth more than the 5 treasured swords according to the hint of the treasure-hunting sword's spirit. Moreover, he directly followed the words of the treasure-hunting sword's spirit and poured his own essence blood and the aura of the 5 elements spirit roots into it. It was equivalent to the spirit treasure recognizing its master. But after doing all this, he and the treasure-hunting sword's spirit did not expect that the 5 treasured swords would actually recognize the ring as its master, creating a subtle connection between Chen Hao and it, as if the 5 treasured swords had also recognized him as their master. What was there for Chen Hao to hesitate about? His head wasn't kicked by a donkey, and his head wasn't clamped by a door. Moreover, in order to obtain the ring, Chen Hao had already created a chaotic effect, and completely met the conditions to silently make a fortune. Of course, he didn't hesitate to take the 5 treasured swords into the ring during the chaos, boss, a total of 432 pieces of metal attribute derived from the thunder attribute, a total of 324 pieces of wood attribute derived from the wind attribute. The earth element was derived from the darkness element, and there were also 432 of them. 8 gold spiritual crystals, 6 wood spiritual crystals, 8 earth spiritual crystals. Emoyui said excitedly. Immediately after, Helian Wuzi, who was completely unaware that she was exposed, also reported the fire and water attributes. The fire attribute was the most derivative, and the light attribute was the least in number. There were only 216 fire crystals and 4 fire crystals. The water element was the most astonishing. There were a total of 1,088 spiritual crystals of water, including 20 relatively large ones and 1 small one that looked like a jade pendant. In total, there were 2,492 5 elements spiritual pills, 46 large 5 elements spiritual crystals, and 1 small spiritual crystal. This harvest was too heaven-defying and shocking. It absolutely accounted for 1/3 of the total income of all the disciples. "Boss, why do I feel like half of it is missing? 1 spirit crystal is equivalent to 108 5 elements spirit pills. Yeah, why is there so little?" Haha. Chen Hao didn't answer their questions directly. Instead, he smiled and said, "You should have already guessed that I've obtained the 5 elements spiritual roots. In addition to the 5 elements spiritual roots, the core treasure of the black-yellow treasury is also in my hands." Chen Hao's words made Helian Wuzi and Emoyui widen their eyes at the same time. As Chen Hao said, he had obtained the 5 elements spiritual root. Although Helian Wuzi and Emoyui were not sure, they vaguely guessed it. After all, when the palaces in the black-yellow treasury were opened, Chen Hao's original energy contained a strange energy every time, which could easily open the palaces. But how could the core treasure of the black-yellow treasury also be in the hands of Chen Hao? At that time, the two felt that Chen Hao's actions were strange, but they never thought that how could Chen Hao get the things that had been obtained by the four great masters? At that time, I deliberately caused chaos to deceive others. However, I just wanted to get the inconspicuous black-yellow ring, but I didn't expect that the 5 swords were closely related to the black-yellow ring. So, naturally I took them together. But, the price was that I spent half of our 5 elements spiritual pills. Chen Hao said with pain. It can't be? This can't be helped. My current strength is too low, so I can't activate the black-yellow ring. I can only activate it by swallowing the 5 elements spiritual pills. Otherwise, I can't hide it from Zhao Yunfei and the rest. Chen Hao said, but although it's painful, it's still worth it. The value of the 5 swords far exceeds the value of half of our 5 elements spiritual pills. Moreover, the black-yellow ring has a storage space. You saw Uncle Huang's storage ring last time, and it's similar to that thing. These spiritual pills and crystals are absolutely safe in there, unless I die. This matter cannot be known by anyone. Otherwise, we will offend the 3 great clans and Zhuge Qingyun. Our current strength is still too weak, so we must keep a low profile. What's with your eyes? No. Nothing, Mo Yui said. Alright, each of us take 20 spiritual pills and exchange them for level 6 or level 7 elixirs. The level of benefits should be good, and the elixirs exchanged will be enough for us to use for a long time. Each of you take 1 spiritual crystal of each attribute for cultivation. The rest will be temporarily kept by me. When there's an opportunity to get a storage ring, I will distribute it to you. I believe it won't take long. If you don't have enough, just look for me. As Chen Hao spoke, he emitted a stream of mental energy from between his eyebrows. In an instant, the spiritual pills and crystals on the carpet disappeared with whooshing sounds. This caused Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui to be dumbfounded. There was nothing they could do. The storage space was simply too mystical for the two of them. They had only seen the storage ring when they followed Huang Qi previously. That was something that only martial god realm experts could refine. It was incomparably precious. In a small place like the Cloud region, it was basically impossible to have it. However, according to what Huang Qi said, it wasn't difficult for the disciples of the Royal New Show Hall to obtain a low-grade storage ring. Fortunately, Chen Hao was still able to activate the storage function and didn't need to consume any spiritual pills. Otherwise, it would be a huge tragedy. When our strength is sufficient, I will let the two of you use the water sword and golden sword. We can't expose it now, so I will keep it for the time being. Chen Hao continued. I don't need it. Helian Wuzi didn't say anything, but Mo Yui only hesitated for a moment, then hugged the broken sword tightly in his arms and said, Boss, it's enough for me, although the golden sword is very good, but what I like more is this sword that has accompanied me since I was a child. What's so good about this broken sword of yours? Do you really treat it as your wife? Chen Hao said speechlessly. No. Boss, although this sword isn't a good sword, it is my only proof of identity. And I can feel that it has feelings for me. Mo Yui's expression was strange as he said with a red face. Cough cough. Helian Wuzi suppressed her laughter and coughed lightly to cover it up. No way. Chen Hao stared at Mo Yui with wide eyes. Actually, I'm not a direct descendant of the Mo family. My father is actually my adoptive father. According to my adoptive father, when he picked me up, I was with this sword. At that time, I was just born. Mo Yui's gaze became a little complicated and his voice was low. Helian Wuzi, who originally wanted to laugh, also didn't have the slightest trace of a smile at this moment. As for Chen Hao, he finally understood why Mo Yui was a sword maniac who was silent and reclusive. His sword is not simple. At this moment, the voice of the treasure-hunting sword spirit rang in Chen Hao's mind. Oh? How is it not simple? Chen Hao asked with slight surprise. I don't know the details. The material is very ordinary, but it seems to contain an aura similar to mine. It's very, very weak. But I can confirm that as this kid's strength increases, this sword will also gradually evolve and upgrade. Are you saying that his lousy sword has a sword spirit? Kid, let's discuss something. The treasure hunting sword spirit suddenly changed the topic. There's no discussion. I haven't said anything yet. Are you really not going to discuss it? Don't you just want to swallow the 5 elements spiritual pills? Yes. Are you really not going to give it to me? Don't regret it. What I hate the most is people who burn bridges after crossing the river. Could you have gotten so much without me? Don't expect me to help you sense treasures in the future. Cough cough. 10. Chen Hao hurriedly replied when he heard the treasure hunting sword spirit. 500. 20. 600. F***ck. 500. If you don't want to do it, forget it. Including the 2 of them, I contributed the most, but I didn't even get a quarter of it. I even helped you get the 5 elements spiritual root, the dark yellow ring, and the 5 elements sword. Don't be too stingy. P.S. Thanks to Passionate Love 1176 Chidian coins, Happy Drunk in the Wind 200 Chidian coins, Maple Apart from the Night 100 Chidian coins, Dream is already 100 Chidian coins, for their support. Thank you very much. Begging for collection, recommendation tickets. The second update is at noon, and the third update is at around 7 p.m. Chapter 92. Second update, please recommend me. Thank you. Third update, before 7 p.m. Alright, I'll let you devour them after they leave. Chen Hao had no choice but to compromise. He had already thought of this. He had refused to discuss it earlier because he was afraid that this fellow would ask for too much. 500 was still within his acceptable range. After all, without Treasure Hunter's sword spirit, Chen Hao's gains would not be much higher than the other disciples, let alone the 5 elements spirit root. After sending Treasure Hunter's sword spirit away, Chen Hao looked at Moyue and said, Then use your sword. I also feel that your sword is not that simple. I'm afraid it has something to do with your sword intent. Yes, boss. It's just that its material is a little lacking. If it had the sharp aura of a golden sword, it would be perfect. That's simple. When you become stronger, just use your energy to refine it. As long as you find enough precious ores, you can gradually become stronger. Alright, you can all go back and cultivate. Tomorrow morning, we'll go and exchange for them. After we assess the benefits, we'll go to the secret library to take a look. What? How many did you say? The general manager of Cold Moon Hall looked at Chen Hao and the other 2 in shock, thinking that he had misheard. Yesterday, the hall master had already made an announcement and used the benefits to attract new disciples to exchange for some of their 5 elements spirit pills. However, most of the disciples who came this morning only had 2 or 3 pills. The most they had was 5 pills. Obviously, everyone knew how precious the 5 elements spirit pills were. It was already not easy to take out 5 pills. However, at this moment, Chen Hao actually said that each of them would exchange 20 pills for a total of 60 pills. The general manager thought that he had misheard and looked at Chen Hao and the other 2 in shock. We're too weak. Instead of keeping the 5 elements spirit pills for future use, it's better to exchange them for level 6 and level 7 spirit pills. We think it's worth it. So, we'll exchange all of them for a total of 60 pills. Chen Hao said straightforwardly, General Manager, please exchange 20 level 7 spirit pills for us and the rest for level 6 spirit pills. This. Good. What a good child. If we all have this kind of dedication, our royal new show hall won't be strong. But, aren't you going to keep a few for yourself? This is a spirit pill with the aura of the 5 elements spiritual root. Although it is not very precious, it can only be found by chance. It will be very useful to you in the future. Although Old Man really wants all of you to exchange for it, it's better for you to keep a few for yourself. No need. Thank you, Chief Steward. We believe that we will be able to comprehend it with our own strength in the future. Let's exchange them all, Chen Hao said while shaking his head. All right then. Level 3 benefit. This time, the three of you will receive a very high level of benefit. You might be tied for first place among the new disciples of Cold Moon Hall. These were 20 level 7 spiritual herbs and 400 level 6 spiritual herbs, which were exchanged. These 16 level 6 spiritual herbs and 60 level 5 spiritual herbs are your level 3 benefits for the three of you this month. Take these 3 tokens and go to the Secret Art Library to choose a cultivation method. Work hard and cultivate. I believe you will be able to improve your ranking in the year-end test. Yes. Thank you, Chief. Chen Hao and the other two bowed and left the hall. How could there be such stupid people? Not really. Their realms are too low. It is said that they came from a small county. They are obviously lacking in spiritual herbs and don't have any high-level cultivation method. How can they rely on such little benefits? If I were them, I would do the same. After all, it's not only shameful to have a poor result in the end-of-year test, but they're also at the bottom. However, their luck is really good. They actually obtained 60 spirit pills, which is better than many people. That's true, but it is still not worth it. Helian Wuzi's conditions are so good. There are quite a few awesome people in New Excellence Hall who want to get close to her. Just casually deal with them, and I reckon they'll be able to obtain endless benefits. If I were her, I'd definitely be able to mix in with the wind and the water, and get benefits from both sides. Bah, if you were a woman, you would definitely be a broken shoe. Save it. I like girls with integrity like Helian Wuzi. You? Liking her is my personal matter. I didn't ask Helian Wuzi to like me. Chen Hao and the other two ignored the discussion and walked quickly to the Secret Art Library. The Secret Art Library was a giant palace with 7 floors. When Chen Hao approached it, his sharp senses sensed that the Secret Art Library was surrounded by layers of powerful restrictions. Chen Hao knew that if there were any abnormalities here, they would be surrounded by the experts of the new show hall immediately. From the 1st floor to the 7th floor, the higher the level of the secret arts, the stronger and higher the level of the secret arts. New disciples could enter the 1st floor when they received the 1st level benefit. The 1st floor was basically filled with 6th level and 7th level secret art. This was the top cultivation method in Yunzhou County. However, in the Royal New Show Hall, it was only the lowest level of secret art. The difference was too big. Of course, Chen Hao also knew that the real secret arts of the Royal New Show Hall would not be in the Secret Art Library. Chen Hao and the other two received the 3rd level benefits and were qualified to enter the 3rd floor. Uncle Huang? When Chen Hao and the other two arrived at the entrance of the Secret Art Library, they were surprised to find that the old man guarding the door was Huang Qi. Didn't the old man tell you? The old man is the uncle guarding the Royal New Show Hall. However, he's only the uncle guarding the Secret Art Library. Haha. Huang Qi, who was squinting his eyes as if he was lazily sleeping, immediately opened his eyes when he heard Chen Hao's voice. His sleepiness was completely gone. After carefully sensing the three of them, his gaze fell on Chen Hao's face and he said, "Not bad, you've improved a lot. What level are you at now?" A martial artist's true level was very difficult to sense just by relying on one's perception, unless it was during a battle or when the martial artist fully released his aura. It was even harder to sense the level of an intent. When an intent expert restrained their mental strength, even an intent expert would not be able to sense their level of cultivation. 4th level Martial King. Chen Hao said with a smile. Not bad, not bad. If you work a little harder, there might be hope. Huang Qi smiled and said, "What about intent? What level are you at now?" Intent. I haven't cultivated much yet. I've put most of my energy into martial arts. Uncle Huang, what do you mean by hope? Chen Hao concealed his intent cultivation. It wasn't that he didn't trust Huang Qi, but he had his own plans. A dual cultivator of intent and martial arts had never appeared in the Jinyuan kingdom. But now, he had mastered the ability to pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger, pretend to be a tiger to scare people, and pretend to be a tiger to disguise his realm at will. Naturally, he didn't want to reveal his cultivation base. Otherwise, once word got out, his awesome ability would lose its effect. Not cultivating is also right. After all, even though you have the talent of intent, this talent isn't considered strong compared to a true intent expert. Everyone has their own specialization, and a person's energy is limited. You only need to focus on martial arts. With the talent of intent, your mental strength will naturally surpass ordinary martial artists. When you step into a higher realm in the future, you will have an advantage that others don't have. As for the hope I mentioned, when you really have hope, you'll naturally know. Give me the token. Uncle will do things according to the rules. Even though we have a close relationship, we still have to do things according to the rules, Huang Qi said as he stretched out his hand. When Chen Hao and the other two took out their tokens, Huang Qi suddenly exclaimed, "Level 3 benefits? So powerful? It's SOSO. We've exchanged all 5 elements spirit pills," Chen Hao said. Exchanged all? Hearing Chen Hao's words, Huang Qi's eyes narrowed into slits. Who would believe you? With your IQ. Cough cough. Chen Hao scratched his head awkwardly. He didn't expect Huang Qi, this old man, to be so shrewd. Little girl, and you, why are you still like a block of wood? You have to learn to be smarter, understand? Yes, Uncle Huang. Helian Wuzi and Moyui hurriedly said. Each person can only choose one martial skill and one martial art. You must pick them out within an hour and return them within 3 months. Also, even if it's the 3 of you, you can't lend them to each other or teach them to anyone else. Otherwise, the punishment will be very severe. Go. Uncle Huang, is there any other problem? Can I choose the intent absolute art? Even though I haven't cultivated it, I want to familiarize myself with it. If it's not so difficult and doesn't consume too much energy, I can give it a try, Chen Hao said. And that's true. If you cultivate it casually, your mental strength will be stronger. It's also very beneficial to martial artists. Alright, your situation is special. Uncle Huang, I'll make the decision and allow you to choose 2 more intent absolute art. Go. Thank you, Uncle Huang. The 3 of them responded and directly walked into the entrance to the 3rd floor of the Absolute Art Library. After reading it, please help to recommend it. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 93. 3rd update, please recommend bookmark. Thank you. The 3rd floor of the unique study library was 100 feet long and wide. It was surrounded by bookshelves made of white jade crystals. Secret manuals were placed in individual bookshelves. Beside each bookshelf, there was a name and introduction of the secret manual. There were hundreds of books on these 3 levels alone. A faint sandalwood fragrance filled the air. Smelling it made one feel relaxed and happy. Their mind seemed to clear up in an instant, and their mind was peaceful. It was as if all the worries that filled the heart like smoke had been quietly dispelled. The entire 3rd floor was divided into 4 major areas: martial skills, martial arts, mental skills, and mental skills. Among them, the martial skills area was the largest, followed by martial arts. The mental skills and mental skills areas added together were not even 1/10 of the martial skills area. Obviously, the cultivation secret manuals related to mental skills were as rare as mental skills to martial artists in the entire Jinyuan kingdom. More than 10 young men and women were standing in front of the bookshelves, choosing secret manuals. Looking at their age, they were about the same as Helian Wuzi and Moyui. From their clothes, Chen Hao and the other two understood that they were disciples who had entered the Royal New Show Hall a year earlier than them. "There's only an hour. Hurry up and choose," Chen Hao said in a low voice and walked towards the martial skills area. Martial skills were the way to use origin energy. The more powerful the martial skill, the more it increased the power of origin energy. As for martial arts, it was the inner strength mental cultivation method. It was the most fundamental thing for cultivators, and also the key to breaking through realms. Chen Hao had no interest in martial art. Longevity Secrets was definitely more powerful than the cultivation methods here. What's more, the taboo of inner strength mental cultivation methods was to be greedy. With Longevity Secrets, it was meaningless to cultivate other cultivation methods. As for martial skills, Chen Hao was quite interested. Because martial skills and ancient Chinese martial arts were combined, there would definitely be unexpected results. Although ancient Chinese martial arts were valiant, it was strong in the move. If it could be combined with powerful martial skills and increase the strength by several times, the power would naturally be stronger. An hour is enough for me to memorize dozens of secret manuals. Chen Hao looked at the dazzling array of secret manuals and thought to himself excitedly. Now he already knew how abnormal his memory was. However, when Chen Hao casually flipped open a secret manual, he frowned. Mo Yui and Helian Wuzi, who were also following him to choose secret books, were also at a loss and puzzled. Other than the name on the cover of the secret manual, there was not a single word after opening it. What was going on? "Is this your first time in the secret library?" Just as the three of them were in a daze, a young girl with an elegant and refined temperament slowly walked to their side and said with a faint smile. This young girl's eyes seemed to be shrouded in a faint mist, hazy and unfathomable. She had jade-like bones and icy skin, and her figure was graceful. Although it wasn't as beautiful as Helian Wuzi's little face, it had a unique charm. Chen Hao frowned slightly, looked at the girl, and nodded. "Haha. It was the same when I came here for the first time. All the secret manuals in the secret art library were condensed by the experts of our Jinyuan kingdom. They are not ordinary secret manuals. The reason for this is to prevent us, the disciples, from being greedy. If you want to cultivate these secret manuals, you need to inject energy into them in order to open the first level. Once you have mastered the first level, you need to circulate the essence of the first level and inject it into them again to open the second level. In other words, you have to do it step by step. When you choose a secret manual, you only need to look at the introduction beside it. If you like it, you can borrow it." "I see. Thank you, senior sister." Chen Hao cupped his fists and said. He felt a little strange. This young girl's appearance and temperament were obviously not the kind of people who liked to take the initiative to interact with others. Especially when he saw the gazes of the other disciples who were choosing secret manuals, Chen Hao was even more certain of this point. However, this young girl actually took the initiative to approach and explain to the three of them, which made Chen Hao a little surprised. "You're welcome. You're Chen Hao, right?" As expected, the girl smiled slightly and looked at Chen Hao with her hazy eyes. Without giving Chen Hao time to answer, the girl continued, "My name is Fong Qing. I entered the Royal New Show Hall a year earlier than you. We are all junior disciples. I heard from my grandfather that you have a physique that cultivates both martial arts and will. It's very rare. Senior sister, your grandfather is President Fong?" Hearing the girl's words, Chen Hao frowned slightly and asked. "Yes. My grandfather thinks very highly of you. Although he has many personal disciples, he is very concerned about your situation. Haha. I am also very curious as to what level you can reach in the future with this kind of physique. Now it seems." The young girl stared at Chen Hao and said with a smile. As she spoke, a ray of light flashed through her misty eyes. It was obvious that she was checking Chen Hao's cultivation. "Martial Emperor. Your progress is really fast. Thank you for the compliment, Senior Sister Fangqing, Chen Hao said. What level? Fangqing asked. 4th level. Chen Hao did not hide it. What about intent? Chen Hao smiled slightly and repeated what he said to Huang Qi. Fangqing smiled and did not say much. She waved her hand and said, Okay, hurry up and choose. Work hard on your cultivation. I hope you can get a good ranking in the year-end competition. Through Shao Qing's introduction, the three of them understood what was going on and began to choose secret manuals. Of course, Chen Hao's dream of reading more secret manuals also became a bubble. He could only obediently start to read the introduction of various absolute art. Moe quickly chose a sword technique absolute art, Heartless Sword. Heartless Sword, level 8 martial arts technique. Its characteristics were speed, ruthlessness, and accuracy. It was merciless and heartless. The increase in attack power was average, but the speed was twice as fast as ordinary level 8 absolute art. When the sword technique was mastered, one could stab out 18 sword lights in an instant. Each sword was fatal, as fast as lightning, fierce and ruthless. It was very suitable for Moe. On the other hand, Helian Wu Zi chose an 8th level palm technique, Exquisite Palm. Exquisite Palm was known as the Exquisite Palm. At the highest level, there were layers of palm shadows, and it was difficult to distinguish between the real and the fake. It had amazing offensive and defensive power. When Moe and Helian Wuzi walked to the martial arts area and began to choose martial arts, Chen Hao was still looking at the introduction of each martial arts technique one by one. It seemed that there was nothing that satisfied him. Until the hundreds of secret manuals in the martial arts area were almost finished, Chen Hao's eyes locked on the introduction of a secret manual at the side. Star Shaking Fist. Remnant Volume, Level 8 Martial Arts Technique, a total of 7 move. Cultivation Requirement. Precise control of elemental energy, extremely strong physical resistance. Cultivators easily hurt themselves. Cultivate carefully. It's you. Just seeing the 2 words Remnant Volume, Chen Hao was excited. What else was there to think about when he saw the cultivation requirements? Remnant volumes were all level 8 martial arts technique. The complete ones would definitely be stronger, and the cultivation requirements were tailor-made for Chen Hao. After that, Chen Hao casually took a martial arts technique and pretended. After all, with the complete version of Longevity Secret, Chen Hao didn't need to cultivate any inner force mental cultivation techniques for the time being. After that, Chen Hao carefully chose a level 8 technique, Air-Absorbing Palm, and a level 8 technique, Heart-Shattering Secret. Star-Shaking Fist, Heart-Shattering Secret? When Chen Hao and the other 2 walked out of the secret library's 3rd floor and came to Huang Qi to register, Huang Qi looked at the 4 secret manuals that Chen Hao took out in surprise. The other 2 manuals were nothing, but the Star-Shaking Fist and Heart-Shattering Secret made Huang Qi stare at Chen Hao, seemingly a little surprised. What's wrong? Chen Hao asked. What's wrong? You're really a ruthless kid. There were many people who chose the Star-Shaking Fist, but only a few people actually succeeded in cultivating it. There were many who went berserk while cultivating it, and even more who were injured. There were even some who died while cultivating it. Didn't you see the 2 words on the introduction? This is just a remnant. Now that's interesting. Chen Hao smiled. Interesting? Alright. Let's not talk about the Star-Shaking Fist, old man. As for the Heart-Shattering Secret, I suggest you change it. You can choose any level 8 technique. Anyway, you major in martial arts, so there's no need to choose this. Why? Is there a need to ask? The introduction is very clear. Heart-shattering, heart-shattering. Every time you cultivate it, it's as if your soul is torn apart and you're in so much pain that you wish you were dead. Without great perseverance and a rock-solid heart, you can't cultivate it. Although the progress is fast, the disciples who choose this technique basically return it early. No one can persevere. and the further you go, the more painful it will be. Old man also cultivated it in the past. Now that I think about it, I'm afraid. My energy is limited. Isn't it good to improve quickly? The rest doesn't matter. Hearing Huang Qi's words, Chen Hao wasn't afraid. Instead, he felt that he had made a good choice. Pain that you wish you were dead? How many times had Chen Hao experienced pain that made him wish he was dead? As long as he could quickly increase his strength, he had the confidence to endure any pain. You brat, many people have the same idea as you. In the end, they all wasted a chance to choose a secret manual. You only have one chance to choose from the 3 levels of benefits. There are very few people who can persevere in cultivating it a few times. Don't ignore old man's advice. Uncle Huang, I know you're doing this for my own good. But I believe that I can persevere. I'll choose it, Chen Hao said stubbornly. You brat. Up to you. I want to see how many times you can persevere. Brothers and sisters who have finished reading it, please help me recommend it. Thank you. Chapter 94. Looking for recommendation votes. Thank you. Thank you for yesterday's Passionate Love 1176 Chidian coins, Young Promise 1176 Chidian coins, Harmless Donkey 100 Chidian coins, Dream is Already 100 Chidian coins, Tears of the Devil King 100 Chidian coins, Drunk in the Wind 100 Chidian coins, and Book Friend 1109082328542371000 Chidian coins. Thank you. In the Royal New Show Hall, every disciple had 2 chances to train. After the 2 trials, the next half a year's time would be at their disposal. They could train in seclusion or accept the missions issued by the New Show Hall to train. Once the missions were completed, they would be rewarded with the corresponding level of mission. Such missions were good training for the New Show Hall's disciples. At the same time, it was also a way to obtain additional elixirs. If they encountered any problems during training, they could also seek guidance from the instructor on duty at the martial arts hall. There was no collective teaching like a class restriction. Needless to say, the New Show Hall's model was Chen Hao's favorite. After Chen Hao and the other 2 chose their secret manuals in the unique art library, they didn't accept any missions. Instead, they immersed themselves in training in seclusion. They could only borrow the secret manuals for 3 months. Such special secret manuals could only be learned through cultivation. 3 months was simply too short. Furthermore, there was no possibility of renewing the loan, unless they received the 3rd level of benefits again. Therefore, the 3 of them had to try their best to learn as much as possible. In the Royal New Show Hall's benefits, only the basic benefits would never change. However, the benefits for the higher levels were calculated on a monthly basis. If they received the benefits in the current month and didn't receive any assessment for the next month, they would only receive the basic benefit. They could only enter the 1st level of the unique art library. They couldn't enter the 3rd level. Therefore, the 3 of them could only try their best to learn as much as possible from the secret manuals. In the training room, Chen Hao's body was radiating with a resplendent brown glow of elemental energy. His body was as fast as lightning as he blasted out a punch. At this moment, the glow of elemental energy around his body suddenly converged. His fist was shining with an incomparably resplendent brown glow like a star. Boom! A muffled explosion rang out, causing the entire training room to tremble violently. On the incomparably hard wall made of special metal, a fist imprint about 5 centimeters deep appeared. Almost the entire fist had sunk into the wall. Pung pung pung. Chen Hao threw out dozens of punches as fast as lightning. Suddenly, he retreated to the core of the training room and shouted, "Absorb!" Following Chen Hao's shout, he opened his hand and grabbed the 1,000-pound boulder that he had specially brought back from 10 steps away. That 1,000-pound boulder actually flew into the air and directly flew towards Chen Hao. At the same time, Chen Hao punched out. Boom! Stone chips flew everywhere, turning into fine powder. Phew, when the dust settled, Chern Hao stared at the dense fist marks on the wall. He let out a long sigh and revealed a gratified expression. 2 whole months, star-shaking fist, absorbing palm, heart-breaking art, all comprehended. This speed is not bad, right? My battle strength should have increased by at least 30%. I wonder how Xiaowu and Xiaoma are doing. Chern Hao thought to himself as he pushed open the door to the training room. In these 2 months, the 3 of them only met once when they received their benefits last month. The rest of the time, they did not leave the room and relied on the fasting pills to support themselves. They wholeheartedly immersed themselves in closed-door training and comprehending. During this time, Chern Hao's level increased too quickly. What he lacked the most was battle experience. Chern Hao was very clear about the importance of a foundation. Therefore, in this month, besides cultivating longevity secret while recovering his elemental energy, and experiencing death almost every day to cultivate heart-breaking art to refine his psychokinesis, he did not make any breakthroughs. Instead, he wholeheartedly immersed himself in martial arts and mental technique. But even so, the barrier between martial king and mental emperor 4th stage was already faintly loosening. Chern Hao believed that as long as he was willing, he could break through at any time. Not only that, Chern Hao discovered that with his unique physique that dual cultivated in both martial and will, in this sort of boundary, although the 2 barriers were completely independent of each other, there was also a subtle connection between them. Chern Hao couldn't explain it clearly, but he could feel that as long as he broke through one of the barriers, the other barrier would also break apart. This feeling was very clear. How is it? Not long after, when Helian Wuzi and Moyui arrived at Chern Hao's dormitory, Chern Hao asked. Helian Wuzi said, "I've already cultivated to the 7th stage. I've advanced to 3rd stage Martial King. I should be able to cultivate to the last stage next month." Not bad. On the contrary, Helian Wuzi made Chern Hao quite satisfied. He had to admit that this little girl's talent was indeed astonishing. She wasn't as special as he was. To be able to reach such a stage, it was obviously impossible without extremely strong talent. In a small place like the Helian family, she was indeed buried. With the environment and conditions of the Royal New Show Hall, which was 100 times better, Chern Hao believed that this little girl would display more and more astonishing talent. I've also advanced to 3rd stage Martial King. I've comprehended Heartless Sword to the 8th stage. But for the 8th stage Pure Yang Art, I've only comprehended to the 6th stage. Moyui said with slight regret. Not bad, Chern Hao said. What about you? Helian Wuzi asked. I've cultivated all of them. After 3 months, I'll return the secret manuals with you. I want to take some missions to gain experience first. Hearing Chern Hao's words, Helian Wuzi and Moyui were not surprised. The 2 of them were already used to Chern Hao's abnormal talent. Although they had followed Chern Hao's instructions for the past 2 months, desperately torturing themselves and madly cultivating, in the end they still could not catch up to his pace. After Chern Hao received his benefits, he directly said a few words to Helian Wuzi and Moyui, then went to the Cold Moon Hall's primary disciple mission distribution area. The huge hall of the palace was currently filled with Cold Moon Hall's disciples. There were primary disciples, intermediate disciples, and advanced disciples with stronger auras. The first day of every month was the day when the Royal New Show Hall's missions were distributed. Therefore, without a doubt, today was the busiest day in the mission distribution area. Chern Hao? What surprised Chern Hao was that when he walked to the door of the mission distribution area, he met the elegant and refined young girl Fang Qing again. There were several young men and women with Fang Qing. Fang Qing took the lead and was clearly the core of the group. She was walking out of the main hall. Senior Sister Fang Qing, what a coincidence! Chern Hao said with a smile. Didn't you borrow the secret manual? Why, did you hit a bottleneck? Fang Qing smiled. Under normal circumstances, the disciples who borrowed the secret manual would go into seclusion to comprehend it. Only when they hit a bottleneck and were stuck would they be inspired through experience and battle. Yes. Chen Hao was slightly taken aback, but he immediately responded. You haven't taken any missions, right? Yes. It's my first time here. Chen Hao said. Then I'll have to help you explain. Wait for me. Fang Qing said to Chen Hao and then turned to speak to the disciples behind her. Hearing Fang Qing's words, the disciples looked at Fang Qing in surprise. They clearly did not understand when their big sister had become so kind. Those who were not familiar with her might be confused by Fang Qing's tranquil and refined temperament. However, if they truly thought Fang Qing was a gentle and soft kitten, the consequences would be too miserable. Thank you, senior sister. I'll have to trouble you again. It's no problem, Fang Qing said and then brought Chen Hao into the mission hall. Do you see those 19 mission boards? Our new show hall's missions are divided into 19 levels according to the difficulty of the missions. They are also divided according to the cultivator's level. For example, the lowest level mission is a rank 1 monarch level mission. If you want to complete a mission like that, you need to be at least a rank 1 monarch. So on and so forth. Level 9 missions correspond to rank 9 monarch. Level 9 missions correspond to rank 9 monarch. Level 10 missions correspond to rank 1 monarch. Level 18 missions correspond to rank 9 monarch. Level 19 missions correspond to rank 1 monarch. Level 19 missions correspond to rank 1 monarch. Level 19 missions are usually special missions. Very few disciples will be able to satisfy the mission requirements, Fang Qing said. So you're saying that I, a rank 4 martial monarch, can only take on level 4 missions? Chen Hao said with a slight frown. That's not necessarily true. You can take on level 1 to level 3 missions. It's just that the rewards are small and not challenging. You can also take on missions above level 5 as long as you're not afraid of death. I heard from Grandpa that your combat strength is very strong, but don't even think about taking level 5 missions. What rank are you now? I'm still rank 4. Oh. Fang Qing was slightly surprised. However, when she saw Chen Hao's confident eyes, she understood what was going on. She smiled slightly and said, It's not bad to stabilize your realm. There are no disadvantages. You're a rank 4 martial monarch. At best, you can take on level 4 missions of medium difficulty. These mission levels are evaluated according to the average combat strength of the Eastern Continent's genius disciples in their respective realms. Your talent is one of the geniuses in our country. However, our Jinyuan kingdom is only a small country. Compared to the geniuses of other kingdoms and empires, we're far inferior. So, at best, you can take on level 4 missions that are relatively simple. It's already very dangerous for you. It's better to take level 3 missions to be safe. Under normal circumstances, most disciples will do missions with a lower rank. If it's a team, it's slightly higher. Fang Qing explained. Chen Hao was slightly dazed. Even he didn't expect the Royal New Show Hall's missions to contain so much information. Fang Qing's words made Chen Hao even more certain of his original conjecture. Jinyuan Kingdom was ultimately a small and weak country, and his amazing talent could only be considered a genius in Jinyuan Kingdom. The Eastern Continent that Fang Qing mentioned was an area divided by the Boundless Continent. Jinyuan Kingdom belonged to the Eastern Continent. The Boundless Continent was divided into 5 continents: East, West, South, North, and Central, as well as overseas islands. After Fang Qing explained to Chen Hao, she told Chen Hao to be careful and left by herself. The mission levels are evaluated according to the average combat strength of the Eastern Continent's genius disciples? Very good. Chen Hao took a deep breath. His eyes shone brightly as he walked toward the Level 4 mission announcement board. Once he understood this, Chen Hao had a reference and a goal to work towards. Yo, isn't this a coward? When Chun Hao came to the Level 4 mission announcement board and browsed through the missions with bright eyes, a sarcastic, contemptuous, and arrogant voice suddenly came from beside him. P.S. Please add it to your collection. Thank you. Recommending a very popular book, Shaolin Abbot of the 80s. Heaven doesn't open its eyes. It actually transmigrated a young man in his prime from the 80s to ancient times. It's fine if he transmigrated, but he transmigrated as a monk. It's fine if he transmigrated as a monk, but he had to be an abbot. It's fine if he's an abbot, but he even set up an abbot system to restrict me. Practice the virgin technique to great success? Make Shaolin the #1 sect in the world? Become the leader of the martial arts world? The system's requirements are too outrageous. I'm just an ordinary man from the 80s. I'm afraid I'm not qualified for such a great undertaking. But with this damn system's restrictions, I have to be qualified even if I'm not. The young man from the 80s cried and struggled. No one knew that the ultimate wish of this young abbot, who was the leader of the martial arts world, was to return to the secular world. Link frowny Facebook ID equals 233-5457, book name equals Shaolin Abbot of the 80s. Chapter 95. Chun Hao frowned slightly. Although the person did not name him, the voice was not unfamiliar. Who else could it be but the dog of the Dongfang family? Coward, I'm talking to you. In Xianwang Ancient City, your asterisk had shrunk into your skull. When you returned to the new show hall, you shrunk into your dormitory. I thought you would always be a coward. Do you think I won't settle the score with you just because of this? I couldn't do anything to you back in your dorm, but don't think that fourth brother and I will forget the humiliation of that sword strike. Dongfang Ying stared at Chun Hao and said in a sinister voice, Scram. Chun Hao turned around and stared coldly at the person who had just arrived. Brat, be careful. 2 peak 5th grade martial monarchs and 1 peak 6th grade martial monarch. At this moment, the voice of the treasure-hunting sword spirit resounded in Chun Hao's mind. The treasure-hunting sword spirit's powerful perception wasn't just great at sensing spirit herbs and treasures, it also had an incomparable accuracy towards cultivators' realms. It's good to be strong, Chun Hao said in his mind. There were 3 people in total. 2 of them were Dongfang Ying and Dongfang Jie. After the 2 of them returned from the Xianwang Ancient City, they had broken through to peak rank 5 martial monarch. The other person standing in the middle was Dongfang Zhan, whose cultivation was higher than the 2 of them. He was a peak rank 6 martial monarch. When Dongfang Jun and the others saw Chun Hao's group of 3 in Xianwang Ancient City, it was already the end of their training. They wanted to play the hero saving the damsel in distress and trample on Chun Hao, but they didn't even have the chance. However, when they returned, they found out that Chun Hao and the other 2 had foolishly used the 5 elements spirit pills in exchange for level 3 benefit. They then entered the unique art library to choose secret manuals and began to cultivate in seclusion. They had no chance at all. Dongfang Jun and the others estimated that it would take at least 3 months for the 3 of them to come out of seclusion. However, he did not expect to meet Chun Hao here at this time. At this moment, Dongfang Jun was in closed-door cultivation to make a breakthrough to Martial Emperor. However, the 3 of them were not afraid of Chun Hao at all. 2 peak rank 5 and 1 peak rank 6. What was there to be afraid of? Yo, you want us to scram? What a big tone. Do you think you're still in your dorm? Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Today, I will let you know that the disciples of the Dongfang family are not people that a little trash like you can provoke. Come out with me if you have the guts. Don't think that I can't do anything to you just because you're a coward. I have plenty of chances to break your shell. Dongfang Ying said provocatively. A challenge? Very well, I accept. Chun Hao's handsome face flashed with a touch of coldness when he saw countless people surrounding him in an instant. His voice became even calmer as he spoke. At the same time, he turned around and walked out of the hall. Everyone could clearly sense the powerful battle intent emanating from Chen Hao's body. So what if they were rank 5 or 6 martial emperors? Chen Hao hadn't fought a real battle since he had reached the 4th grade emperor level. Since he had come knocking on his door, he might as well use this battle to test his combat strength. You have guts. I love beating gutsy bastards like you until you're weak and kneeling on the ground begging for mercy. Haha, third brother, why don't you let me do it? I'm already excited. Dongfang Jie was overjoyed when he saw that Chen Hao had agreed to Dongfang Ying's request. If Chen Hao hadn't accepted, they wouldn't have been able to do anything to Chen Hao so brazenly. Now, it was obvious that Dongfang Ying's provocation had succeeded. Of course, he was secretly pleased with himself and added fuel to the fire. Chen Hao, who was walking out, paused slightly. Without turning his head, he said, I don't mind if the 3 of you come at me together. It'll save me the trouble. Shu, the crowd, which had already begun to discuss spiritedly, suddenly burst into a wave of boos. It was already surprising that Chen Hao dared to accept the challenge. Now, he actually said such arrogant words. Some of the intermediate and advanced disciples who had come to watch the show shook their heads slightly. They looked at Chen Hao with a trace of pity in their eyes. As people who had experienced it, who hadn't seen the strength of the Dongfang family's disciples. Many of them had even been bullied by the Dongfang family's disciples. Those who could endure it were still all right. Those who pretended to be stubborn were basically nowhere to be found. They didn't even know how they died. Endure it for a while and the wind will be calm. Take a step back and the sky will be clear. Sigh, why are the disciples nowadays becoming more and more arrogant? The Dongfang family's disciples are the ones who should not be provoked. They are much more ruthless than the Zhao family and the Bailey family. What a pity! Yeah. Who dares to offend the Dongfang family? Each and every one of them, cough cough. One of them wanted to say something but shut his mouth halfway. The Dongfang family was one of the 3 major families in the Zhenyuan kingdom. Before their disciples entered the royal new show hall, the ultimate techniques that they cultivated were incomparable to ordinary people. Basically, any disciple of the Dongfang family had the ability to challenge those of a higher rank with their powerful ultimate technique. They indeed had the right to be arrogant and overbearing. However, this wasn't the strongest thing about the Dongfang family. The strongest thing was that the Dongfang family's disciples never cared about face or principles. They were domineering, arrogant, shameless, and unscrupulous. It was also because of this reason that these disciples didn't dare to speak ill of the Dongfang family. They were afraid that if the rumors were to spread to the ears of the Dongfang family's disciples, it would be disastrous. This Chen Hao, let's not associate with him anymore in the future. Among the crowd, Zhuge Qinyun and a few other disciples from the Lancang province were among them. At this moment, Zhuge Qinyun gazed at Chen Hao's back view and spoke indifferently but without any doubt. Boss, this is needless to say. We are clear. We don't think highly of this brat. He doesn't even know the ways of the world and might die at any moment. Associating with him is unlucky. Yeah, it was the same during the hall selection. Junior sister Xiaowu clearly agreed to go with boss, but it was because of him. Hearing this disciple's words, Zhuge Qinyun helplessly shook his head and thought in his heart, there will be a day when junior sister Xiaowu knows how good I am. Before Zhuge Qinyun met Helian Wuzi, he had never fallen in love. Perhaps it was because he had never fallen in love that he firmly believed that Helian Wuzi was his destined woman. He would never forget how excited he was when he saw Helian Wuzi's ice-cold and beautiful face for the first time. Although he restrained himself very well and others couldn't tell, he deeply understood that it was love at first sight, love at first sight. Let's go, we'll go out and take a look. Zhuge Qinyun muttered to himself for a while and said softly, third brother, fourth brother, don't lower your guard. I've heard that this brat had already advanced to rank 4 martial monarch when he was in Xianwang Ancient City. Right now, I'm afraid that he has already advanced to rank 5. His aura isn't any weaker than yours. Dongfang Jun wasn't present, so Dongfang Zhan, who was temporarily acting as the leader, walked between the two of them and reminded them in a low voice. Don't worry, second brother. How could this brat compare to our Dongfang family's secret techniques? Last time, we were simply unprepared and suffered a loss. Right now, the two of us have both advanced to peak rank 5. Why should we be afraid of him? Second brother, third brother, let me go first. Even if that brat's battle prowess is really strong, he still arrogantly said that he wanted us to go at him together. He's really looking for death. At worst, if I can't do it, third brother will do it. If third brother can't do it, second brother, you'll do it. I guarantee that you'll trample this brat until he's unrecognizable. Dongfang Jie said in a low voice with a sinister expression. Alright, I'll let you show off your might first. Damn, today's luck is really too good. This year, our Dongfang family's glory will start from today's battle. Haha, Dongfang Ying said. The two of them didn't feel that their conversation was shameless at all. They even felt that it was natural for them to fight in turns. This was something that couldn't be helped. The reason why the Dongfang family's disciples were so shameless and rude was just as Chen Hao guessed. It was related to their upbringing. What was shamelessness? They didn't care about face at all. The only thing they cared about was the final victory. As long as they could win, it didn't matter what method they used. After arriving at a spacious plaza, the disciples of the mission hall basically all followed them to watch the show. Especially the junior disciples, not a single one was left out. There were many challenges in the Royal New Show Hall, and they happened basically every day. However, there weren't many challenges that were contradictory in nature. The main challenge was a ranking challenge. Every year, there would be a ranking for the junior disciples, intermediate disciples, and advanced disciples in the end-of-year competition. Anyone who was ranked in the bottom 50 for 2 consecutive years would lose the qualification to be a disciple of the Royal New Show Hall. The challenge was the only chance to salvage the situation. For example, if a disciple was ranked in the bottom 50 for this year's end-of-year competition, he would be able to replace the disciple who was ranked in the top 50 for next year's end-of-year competition. Even if he was still ranked in the bottom 50 for the next year's end-of-year competition, it would only be the first time. It was also because of this reason that there were many challenges in the Royal New Show Hall. This was also the most effective way to motivate the disciples. Faced with the countless onlookers, the 3 Dongfang family members were very excited. Dongfang Jie's expression was even more arrogant as he stood in front of the cold Chen Hao. Boom boom. 2 explosions sounded. Dongfang Jie and Chen Hao simultaneously surged the elemental energy around their bodies. A thick brown elemental energy protective aura instantly condensed around the two of them. Rank 4 Martial Monarch? Or Rank 4 Martial Monarch? Ha ha. Sensing the fluctuation of elemental energy after Chen Hao released his protective energy barrier, and then looking at the color of Chen Hao's elemental energy, Dongfang Jie immediately laughed arrogantly. The onlookers were also very surprised. Since Chen Hao was so arrogant, most people thought that he should at least have some strength. However, he was actually only a rank 4 martial monarch. Dongfang Jie, who was obviously the weakest of the 3, was actually a rank 5 martial monarch. In addition, the Dongfang family's disciples were very strong. The result was very obvious. I thought you had advanced to rank 5 or rank 6. You're just a mere rank 4 martial monarch, yet you dare to be so arrogant. Ha ha. Come eat my palm. Along with Dongfang Jie's loud shout, violent elemental energy surged out. Dongfang Jie's clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. The brown elemental energy wreaked havoc around his body, causing the air within a radius of several zhang to churn violently. he suddenly stomped his feet and sent out a palm strike, toppling the mountains and overturning the seas. The first attack was the Dongfang family's rank 9 secret art, mountain toppling palm. It was very powerful and imposing. Boom boom boom. A huge brown elemental energy palm instantly exploded the surrounding space and attacked Chen Hao with the force of toppling the mountains and overturning the seas. Second update. The last chapter of the public chapter will be published in the early hours of the morning. I am very nervous. I will update the next chapter when the time comes. Tomorrow, there will be 4 chapters with over 12,000 words. Brothers and sisters who support Dark Mountain, please support the official subscription. At the same time, please give your guaranteed monthly votes to Dark Mountain to give Dark Mountain some enthusiasm and encouragement. Thank you very much. When the time comes, the related chapters will also be updated. Brothers and sisters, please take a look. Chapter 96. Break for me. Chen Hao, who was already prepared, suddenly pushed his origin power to the extreme. He didn't dodge at all, and suddenly punched out with both fists. In an instant, the fist shadows were like a string of cannonballs, like a torrential river, violently bombarding Dongfang Jie's huge palm shadow. Bang, 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 bang. The continuous sound of air exploding rose and fell. Dongfang Jie's violent attacks were completely shattered before they could reach Chen Hao. The origin power wreaked havoc, and a fierce wind rose. The surging power forced the spectating disciples with lower cultivations to activate their protective auras to defend themselves. Dongfang Jie's expression changed. How is this possible? My mountain-shattering palm is a 9th rank secret art. I've already pushed it to the extreme. How can it break a puny 4th rank martial king? Dongfang Jie knew the speed of Chen Hao's sword, so he wanted to use his absolute strength as a 5th rank martial king to completely suppress Chen Hao. However, he didn't expect Chen Hao to break it so easily. Star-shaking fist. What was even more unexpected was that after breaking apart Dongfang Jie's toppling mountain palm, Chen Hao actually didn't stop in the slightest. Those fist shadows suddenly disappeared, and his clothes fluttered as he charged towards Dongfang Jie like a bolt of lightning. At the same time, his right fist shone with a resplendent origin energy light that was condensed to the extreme, as if it had transformed into the stars in the sky, and he punched out. At this moment, Dongfang Jie felt a terrifying pressure. He knew that he had been targeted by Chen Hao's fist intent, so he didn't dare to hesitate anymore. Jade-shattering claw. Dongfang Jie's contracted eyes were filled with viciousness, and a wildness to vent his anger. His 5 fingers abruptly opened up into claws, and the brown essence force actually caused his claws to sparkle with jade-like brilliance, meeting Chen Hao's fist head-on. Star-shaking fist? Isn't that the remnant scroll on the 3rd floor of the secret art library? This brat actually learned it? Ah, jade-shattering claw. Dongfang family's superior 9th rank secret art. As soon as the 2 of them came up, they started to fight in close combat, which shocked everyone. At this moment, when the fist and claw collided, many intermediate and advanced disciples' eyes slightly narrowed as they thought in their hearts. Chen Hao let out a cold snort with a cold expression. Unexpectedly, he did not change the path of his fist and brazenly met the attack head-on. Ding! Rumble! The moment the fist and the claw collided, there was actually a sound similar to the sound of metal clashing and a terrifying explosion of air. The scene that everyone imagined of Chen Hao's fist being locked did not happen. Instead, the 2 figures suddenly retreated. Pooh! Dongfang Jie, who was retreating, felt something sweet in his throat and actually spat out a mouthful of blood. Even Old Four's jade-shattering claw was broken? Dongfang Zhan and Dongfang Ying's faces suddenly turned ugly. Although they had expected Chen Hao to be very strong, they had not expected him to be so strong. Challenging someone of a higher cultivation level than him, and even fighting him head-on, suppressing Dongfang Jie with absolute power. The surrounding disciples also felt that it was inconceivable. The star-shaking fist is actually so strong, no wonder it's so hard to cultivate. Many intermediate and advanced disciples had tried to cultivate the star-shaking fist, but only a few of them were true geniuses. At this moment, seeing that Chen Hao had actually used the star-shaking fist to break Dongfang Jie's jade-shattering claw, and that Dongfang Jie was a fifth-rank martial king, they were extremely shocked. Clang! Dongfang Jie, who was retreating, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His expression became even crazier as he suddenly pulled out the sword from his back. The sword was 3 feet and 3 inches long and 1 and 8 inches wide. It was not as wide as Moyui's greatsword, but the sword's body was suffused with a chilling aura. The material of the sword was obviously much better than Moyui's greatsword. Although it had not reached the level of a spiritual treasure, it was definitely not an ordinary metal. Chen Hao and the other disciples who came from poor families could not afford it. Perhaps only the disciples of the 3 great families could have such a treasure sword. Droughtland Thunder. With the treasure sword in hand, Dongfang Jie's aura suddenly increased. He raised the sword and waved it. In an instant, rays of sharp sword light violently shot out like lightning. Rumble, the hard rock ground around Chen Hao was instantly filled with countless pieces of rubble and smoke. It was as if dense bombs had exploded at the same time. Chen Hao's figure was completely submerged in the smoke of rubble, forcibly stopping Chen Hao from continuing to attack. Bang bang bang, Chen Hao's fist shadows came one after another. Other than his eyes slightly shrinking, he actually did not have the slightest bit of fear as he shattered the sword light shooting towards his body with his fist. Coward, you are indeed very strong, but if this is all you have, then obediently kneel down and kowtow to me. Thunderclap 9th Heaven. Dongfang Jie was unforgiving after gaining the upper hand. He used the highest sword skill he had comprehended, Thunderclap sword, to the last level of Thunderclap 9th Heaven. Violent origin power condensed into a sword aura. Hiss! Man and sword became one as it pierced towards Chen Hao as fast as lightning. In your dreams! Chen Hao, who seemed to be completely suppressed, suddenly trembled. With a boom, his protective aura turned into a brown flame, burning fiercely. His entire aura suddenly rose sharply. Star-shattering fist! Hiss! Rumble, a fist that was condensed to the extreme was like a dazzling shooting star, and it shattered the numerous dense sword lights with irresistible force. Dongfang Jie, who had victory within his grasp, never would have imagined that Chen Hao would actually strangely dodge his sword, and he was utterly unable to dodge in time before he let out a shrill cry and was blasted flying by Chen Hao's shocking punch. Pooh! Like a kite with a broken string, Dongfang Jie was still flying in the air when he spat out a mouthful of blood. Fourth brother! The change happened too quickly. When Dongfang Zhan and Dongfang Ying reacted, it was already too late to make a move. F***ck your mother! I want you to die! The two of them caught Dongfang Jie. Seeing that his face was as white as a sheet and had obviously suffered heavy injuries, Dongfang Ying immediately shouted angrily and was about to rush out. Let me! Dongfang Zhan pulled Dongfang Ying and said coldly. Powerful to actually win against someone of a higher level. The star-shaking fist is really powerful. For this Chen Hao to be able to learn it, his talent is really not simple. Unfortunately, I'm afraid he won't be able to win this time no matter how strong he is. The crowd was discussing spiritedly. When they saw the rank 6 martial monarch Dongfang Zhan appear, they knew that the battle was about to end. As for the new disciples, they were cursing the Dongfang family in a low voice. Not only did they take turns to fight, they even bullied the weak. It was obvious that these people had not experienced the shamelessness of the Dongfang family's disciples. Chen Hao is actually this strong. When he was with us, he was only a martial master, this talent. The disciples beside Zhuge Qingyun were obviously even more shocked. In less than half a year, Chen Hao, who they thought had a special physique and extremely high talent but was unable to withstand a single blow, had already grown to a level that most of them could not match. Clang! Without giving much time for discussion, Dongfang Zhan unsheathed his sword with an arrogant and cold expression. His eyes were filled with boundless ruthlessness as he stared at the uninjured Chen Hao. His sword was exactly the same as Dongfang Ying's sword. It was obviously a treasured sword of the same level. No expression could be seen on Chen Hao's face. Only the corner of his mouth was slightly raised, telling everyone that he was filled with disdain and arrogance from his bones. Without making any sound, he unsheathed his sword from the simple ironwood sword sheath on his back. What made everyone flabbergasted was that Chen Hao's sword sheath was made of ironwood, but his sword was also made of ironwood. Ironwood was incomparably hard, comparable to steel. However, it was still made of wood. No matter how hard or sharp it was still limited. Under normal circumstances, ironwood swords were only used by the disciples of the family when they were practicing their swordsmanship to avoid unnecessary injuries. However, the sword that Chen Hao carried on his back was actually an ironwood sword. This was out of everyone's expectations. However, this ironwood sword seemed to have an unusual aura in everyone's eyes. The body of the sword was as smooth as jade, faintly emitting a metallic luster. There was not the slightest flaw, even the hilt was the same. There was no blade and the tip of the sword was smooth. However, the feeling that it gave off was something that no one had ever seen before. Prepare to die. Hiss. Just as Dongfang Zhan finished his sentence, his body extended and like a wisp of green smoke, he appeared 3 meters away from Chen Hao. The treasured sword in his hand shook violently. In an instant, rays of resplendent dense brown sword radiance burst out as he thrust his sword forward. So fast! Waves of exclamations erupted from the crowd. Ding 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 ding. However, what was even more shocking was yet to come. A series of dense metal clashing sounds suddenly rang out. Sword radiance shot out in all directions, blocking Chen Hao and Dongfang Zhan's flashing figures. Dongfang Zhan was originally an expert swordsman. Speed was his foundation. The same sword technique in his hands would definitely be more powerful. This was not something that Dongfang Ying and Dongfang Jie could compare to. Even Dongfang Jun was not as good as him in this aspect. Therefore, when Dongfang Ying and Dongfang Jie had their throats slit by Chen Hao's fast sword, he was looking forward to competing with Chen Hao to see whose sword was faster. Therefore, the moment he entered the arena, he used his peak level 9 sword technique, Lightning Sword, which he had cultivated to perfection. Ding ding. Boom boom. The two of them tossed and turned, advancing and retreating, forcing the crowd to also move back and forth on the huge field. Such an exciting collision of sword techniques caused some of the higher-grade experts and even the martial emperors to suck in a breath of cold air. What powerful talent in the way of the sword! Although their cultivations are not high, their sword techniques are actually so exquisite. Roar! Hiss! Dongfang Zhan was extremely shocked. Originally, he had wanted to use his fast sword, which he was proud of, to injure his opponent severely. However, he did not expect that Chen Hao, who was only holding an ironwood sword, was not the slightest bit slower than him. In fact, Chen Hao was even faster than him. One had to know that he had attacked first, while Chen Hao had defended himself from behind. One had taken the initiative while the other had been passive. These were two completely different concepts. However, Chen Hao had blocked all of his sword techniques without missing a single one. With such a reaction and speed, Dongfang Zhan did not dare to be careless anymore. He suddenly shouted loudly and released all of his violent origin energy of a peak level 6 martial emperor. The sword pierced out, as if it was tearing the void. The brilliant sword light carried an unparalleled sharpness and pressure as it enveloped Chen Hao. Chen Hao's pupils suddenly contracted. Even he did not expect that Dongfang Zhan, a level 6 martial emperor, would be so powerful. Originally, he, who had advanced to the peak of level 4 martial emperor, did not plan to use his mental energy. After all, with his physical body's talent, he had the powerful ability to challenge those of a higher grade just by relying on his cultivation. However, at this moment, Chen Hao knew that if he did not use his mental energy, he would be the one to lose. The brilliant origin energy of the ironwood sword suddenly pulsed in an extremely strange manner. Its color did not change in the slightest. In the eyes of the spectating experts, they only thought that Chen Hao was temporarily taking a breath. However, P.S. First update. Please guarantee a minimum monthly vote. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. You've really brought shame to our Dongfang family. You, hearing this person's words, Dongfang Zhan and the other two's expressions changed. Especially Dongfang Zhan, who had been heavily injured by Chen Hao. His pale face turned into the color of a pig's liver, and he almost spat out blood. Me? What about me? Am I wrong? A mere rank 4 martial monarch. The only thing he has is a slightly stronger physical body. It seems that his control over his origin energy is pretty good as well. However, how could a rank 6 martial monarch like you not be able to deal with someone like him? He was simply a pig. If he followed a pig, he would become a pig. If you had already pledged your allegiance to me, how could you be so weak? Dongfang Jian, what do you mean? Dongfang Zhan trembled as he stood up. He angrily stared at the person who had come. The person who had come was none other than the Dongfang family's disciple, Dongfang Jian, the head disciple of the fierce Sun Hall. What do I mean? What can this young master mean? Dongfang Jian said with a face full of ridicule. At the same time, he looked at Chen Hao and said, "Brat, if you have the guts, then defeat Dongfang Jun for me. Don't worry, although this young master is the Dongfang family's most talented disciple, and has the most hope of becoming the next patriarch, I will definitely not interfere. Our new show hall will also not allow it. Haha. However, it's hard to say for other places or in the future. Of course, if you can defeat Dongfang Jun, this young master will not pursue the responsibility of injuring these trash of the Dongfang family." Chen Hao slightly frowned. This person's aura was extremely powerful. Although he did not deliberately release it, his every movement carried a power that Chen Hao could not contend against. Even if Chen Hao were to reveal all of his trump cards, it would still not be enough. Martial Emperor, and most definitely a high-rank Martial Emperor. This aura was many times more powerful than rank 1 Martial Emperor Zhao Yunfei's. This was what Chen Hao was truly worried about. Although Dongfang Jun, a rank 9 Martial Emperor, gave him enormous pressure, Chen Hao was no longer afraid of him after returning from Xianwang Ancient City. However, Chen Hao knew very well that the Dongfang family's disciples were not just these 4 new disciples. Every year, the Dongfang family would enter the new show hall. If he were to be too ruthless towards Dongfang Jun and them, it would likely affect all of them. The current Chen Hao did not have the ability to do so. Thus, even in the battle earlier, he had held back and did not attack ruthlessly. Funny, the most hope of becoming the next patriarch? Dongfang Jian, don't forget that our eldest Dongfang Jun is the son of the current patriarch. His aunt is even an inner court disciple of a supersect. What qualifications do you have to compete? Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because your cultivation is high. Otherwise, you will suffer in the future, Humph. Before Chen Hao could say anything, Dongfang Zhan angrily said. Dongfang Jian's ridiculing expression immediately became extremely sinister. It was clear that Dongfang Jian had touched his sore spot. Originally, his talent was undoubtedly the most dazzling new star in the Dongfang family. He was also the most competitive candidate for the next patriarch of the Dongfang family. No one could match him. However, Dongfang Jun, who had once been an ordinary person, had displayed astonishing talent after his aunt, who was an inner disciple of a super sect, had returned to her family. Even he was inferior to Dongfang Jun. Hatred. How could he not hate him? He hated that his father was not the patriarch. He hated that his aunt was not an expert of a super sect. He hated that Dongfang Jun, who was originally mediocre, became a genius because of his birth. Very good, Dongfang Jian. You are merely Dongfang Jun's dog. You actually dare to bite me? Humph. When the family test begins, you better not meet me. Otherwise, you can just wait to become trash. You. Dongfang Jian's complexion immediately turned deathly pale. He felt that he was too impulsive. The family test was not a simple competition. There was no chance to surrender even if one wanted to. And now, he had angered Dongfang Jian. If he were to really meet Dongfang Jian, boy, remember my words. Although they are trash and dogs of the Dongfang family, they are not people that you can defeat. If you are able to defeat Dongfang Jun in the year-end ranking battle, I will not bother about it anymore. Otherwise, you will know that even a dog of the Dongfang family is not someone that you can provoke. Humph. Dongfang Jian no longer paid attention to Dongfang Jian and the others. He suddenly looked at Chen Hao and said. His sharp gaze was like two sharp swords. It caused the hearts of the surrounding people to tremble, much less Chen Hao, who bore the brunt of his gaze. After saying those words, Dongfang Jian flicked his sleeve and left. The instant he turned around, he casually grabbed at Chen Hao. Whoosh! The sword that Chen Hao had just obtained flew out unstoppably. With a poo sound, it was as fast as lightning. It stuck close to Dongfang Jian's scalp and pierced into the hard rock ground in front of him. So powerful! Dongfang Jian is said to be the most talented disciple of the three great families' younger generation. Sure enough, his reputation is well deserved. This strength. I'm afraid that he is above rank 7 Martial Emperor? Too powerful. Peak rank 8 Martial Emperor. The head disciple of the fierce Sun Hall. Originally, he was the disciple that had the most hope of obtaining the position of the Dongfang family's family head. However, because of Dongfang Jun, things have changed. Although Dongfang Jun, who is several years younger than him, is currently weaker than him, he will likely surpass him in a few years. You all heard what I said earlier. Dongfang Jun's father is the Dongfang family's family head. His aunt is an expert from a super sect. She is a legendary existence. It is said that Dongfang Jun was originally very mediocre. However, his aunt used some sort of profound technique to forcibly raise his cultivation talent by several levels. Even Dongfang Jian is inferior to him. I'm afraid that the Dongfang family's family head will fall into Dongfang Jun's hands in the future. No wonder Dongfang Jian's tone was like Dongfang Jun's enemy. So that's the case. Some of the experienced and knowledgeable disciples in the crowd started to discuss. Dongfang Jian's appearance had diluted the shock that Chen Hao brought to them by a lot. At this moment, Chen Hao was tightly clenching his teeth. His body was slightly trembling. His gaze was fixed on his hand that was dripping with blood. However, his heart was in a perilous situation. Ever since their souls had fused, even though Chen Hao was still completely focused on his cultivation and had never truly relaxed, only at this moment did he truly understand that after losing Xiao Jihan, who had once brought him enormous pressure, the current him had unknowingly birthed a trace of arrogance from the depths of his heart. A trace of a self-mocking smile gradually appeared on Chen Hao's face. There was no hatred, no humiliation. There was only a lump of flame, a burning flame. Ignoring the three trash that had completely lost their will to fight, Chen Hao, under the gazes of the crowd, did not care about his hand that was still bleeding. His footwork was steady and his figure was as straight as a sword as he walked toward the mission issuance hall. Dongfang Jian's casual grab had snatched away the treasured sword in his hand. Furthermore, it had even shattered his hand. However, he was thankful to Dongfang Jian. That was because Dongfang Jian had given him a warning. Dongfang Jian's talent is indeed astonishing. This year's year-end competition should be even more exciting. Amen. Fierce Sun Halls Dongfang Jian, Cold Moon Halls by Lishi, Cold Star Halls Zhao Yunlong. Our new show Hall's eldest disciple should be one of the three. For now, it seems that Zhao Yunlong has the greatest hope. However, there is still half a year's time. This Dongfang Jian cannot be underestimated. Unfortunately, there is still a gap between the three of them and Dongfang Ting. I'm afraid that they will not be able to reach the next level. After Chen Hao left, on the top floor of a palace not far away, two extremely powerful old men stared at the dispersing crowd and chatted. These two people were one of the new show hall's hall master and one of the three vice hall masters who had appeared during the hall selection. Yeah, it's truly a pity. In the end, our Zhenyuan kingdom is too small and barren. However, what? It's possible for Dongfang Jun. With his relationship with Dongfang Ting, and Dongfang Ting's return 2 years ago, she did not hesitate to use her boundless true origin and top-grade spiritual pills to cleanse Dongfang Jun's body. It can be said that before reaching rank 9 Martial Emperor, he should not have any obstacles. In just 2 short years, he, who was originally mediocre, rose from rank 4 Martial Warrior to rank 9 Martial Emperor. With 5 more years, it's not impossible for him to become a martial saint. Second update. Today's 4th update is 12,000 words. The 3rd update is tomorrow morning, around 8 o'clock. On the first day of publication, please subscribe, monthly vote, recommend, and reward. Please support me. Please give Wushan some encouragement. Please give your guaranteed monthly votes to Wushan. Thank you. Also, thank you for yesterday's rewards and comments from 12 friends: Wine Powder, Passionate Love Carrot, Pyro Mega Delta Mega Sigma, Sakura Dance, Startling Images in Dreams, Dreaming Already Here, Drunk in the Wind, A Dream of Old Scenery, Farewell to Maple Night, Jade Tree Blossoms, Endless Stream, Clear Stream of Rice Wine. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 98. Please guarantee the monthly tickets and subscriptions. Thank you. Sigh. The hall master shook his head. He frowned and said, although it would be good to be able to reach that level, a single Dongfang Ting has already caused the Dongfang family to be like this. If another Dongfang Jun were to appear, I'm afraid that even the imperial family would not be able to contain the Dongfang family. That's true. The Dongfang family is truly. Hall Master, how is that little guy called Chen Hao from earlier? He looks 16 or 17 years old, but is actually only 13 years old. Huangqi thinks very highly of him. I also feel that there is a lot of hope, the Vice Hall Master said. Huangqi also told me that he still needs more time to observe that boy. Although it is rare to have a constitution that cultivates both martial and intent, it might not be a good thing. Judging from his appearance, he should have chosen to major in martial arts. That is quite wise. To be able to become a rank 4 martial monarch at the age of 13 and possess such battle power, he could definitely be considered an extremely rare genius. He is not inferior to Dongfang Jian, Bai Lishi and Zhao Yunlong. If he can become a rank 6 martial emperor within 2 years, then there is hope. If not, he can at most reach the level of Dongfang Jian, Bai Lishi and Bai Lishi. After all, after becoming a martial emperor, he could be stuck at every bottleneck for a year or even longer. The hall master shook his head and said, Hall Master, you might not know this, oh? The Hall Master frowned. What is it? The star shaking fist. That little guy has already cultivated it to the pinnacle, the Vice Hall Master said. I can see that. Although the remnant star shaking fist is extremely difficult to comprehend, there are several people in our new show hall who have cultivated it to the pinnacle. It is not strange, haha, as the great hall master, you might not have the energy to care about such trivial matters. You probably don't know that this little guy has only borrowed the star-shaking fist for 2 months, right? What? The new show hall master was clearly shocked. He said, You're saying that this little guy only used 2 months to cultivate the remnant star-shaking fist to the pinnacle? That's right. Chen Hao had no idea that because of Huangqi, he had already entered the new show hall's upper echelon's line of sight. Chen Hao. Amen? Senior Fang, why have you come back? When Chen Hao had just walked a short distance into the mission hall, he was surprised to see Fang Qing and a few people chasing after him. I didn't go far before I heard that someone was challenging me. I didn't expect it to be you. Fang Qing's eyes, which seemed to be shrouded in smoke, said with a trace of surprise at this moment, Your combat power is so strong. Is it serious? Chen Hao shook his head slightly and said, It's just a superficial wound. It doesn't matter. Why don't you join us for a quest? We accepted a multiplayer mission. Besides, this is your first time doing a mission, so it's inevitable that you won't be familiar with many things. Why don't you take this mission as well? If something happens, we can take care of each other. Fang Qing stated her purpose. Originally, Fang Qing was quite appreciative of her grandfather when he mentioned Chen Hao. Therefore, when she met Chen Hao, she expressed her goodwill. But that was all. After all, there was still quite a gap between Chen Hao's strength and her. But earlier, Chen Hao's complete victory over Dongfang Zhan caused Fang Qing to be shocked. Only then did she truly have the intention to rope him in. What's the rank? What's the mission? Chen Hao asked. The strength of Fang Qing and the others had already been investigated by Chen Hao with his sharp soul perception. Fang Qing and the other youth were intent, and should be the 2 strongest people in their team. Although it was difficult to see through intent after they restrained their auras, Chen Hao could determine that the 2 of them should have reached the 8th stage intent Emperor realm. The other 2 men and 1 woman were all martial artists, 7th stage martial emperors. There's no rank. It's a special mission to find ruins. Excavate ruins. Yes, the ruins that our new show hall's disciples train in, like the Xianwang ancient city that you went to last time, were mostly discovered through this kind of mission. If you can find the entrance to the ruins, the reward will be very generous. However, the probability of finding it is very low, so there's basically no need to consider the reward. But there are many disciples who accept this kind of mission. Fang Qing paused for a moment and continued. First, this kind of mission doesn't require much strength. As long as you can resist the demonic beasts in the area, you can accept it. Also, whether you can find the entrance to the ruins or not has little to do with strength. The most important thing is your own luck and opportunity. So, many people want to try their luck. Second, you can see the strength of the disciples of other countries. Usually, the genius disciples of the neighboring countries will also participate in this kind of mission. So, this kind of mission also has a lot of danger. Of course, as long as you avoid the disciples of other countries and don't have any conflicts, there won't be much danger. Are you going or not? If you go, we'll wait for you. If not, we'll set off. I'll think about it. Senior sister, don't wait for me. Go first. If you can't find a suitable mission, I'll catch up with you. Chen Hao seemed to be a little hesitant. Okay. Then we'll go first. Remember, don't accept missions that are too advanced. First, do simple missions to familiarize yourself. Yes, thank you, senior sister. After bidding farewell to Fang Qing and the others, Chen Hao's eyes shone with a bright light. His figure flashed and he quickly went to the mission hall. After a while, he found the mission to find ruins on the level 19 special mission board. Location: Magic Cloud Mountain. Jinyuan Kingdom, De Qian Kingdom, Jingyun Kingdom, and De Dian Kingdom. Mission time: the aura of ruins is expected to appear frequently within 2 months. Mission reward: cultivate in the Spirit Gathering Cave in the new show hall for half a year. Choose any 3 spiritual level unique skills from the new show hall, 1 intermediate storage ring, 10 level 8 spiritual medicine, 1,000 level 7 spiritual medicine, and 10,000 level 6 spiritual medicine. Seeing the rewards, Chen Hao gasped. Any one of the rewards was extremely shocking. When he arrived at the new show hall in the Spirit Gathering Cave, Chen Hao already knew that only the chief disciple of the 3 halls was qualified to cultivate in the Spirit Gathering Cave for a month. The chief disciple of the intermediate disciples could cultivate in the Spirit Gathering Cave for 2 months, the chief disciple of the advanced disciples could cultivate in the Spirit Gathering Cave for 3 months, and the chief disciple of the new show hall for half a year. This was equivalent to becoming the chief disciple of New Excellence Hall and receiving a huge reward. As for the spiritual level unique skills, it was beyond the range of level 1 to level 9, and he could choose any 3. The worst rewards were the intermediate storage ring and spiritual medicine. But even these 2 items were very attractive to Chen Hao. Of course, Chen Hao was clearly aware that this assignment required extremely great fortune and karmic luck, and obtaining it was absolutely not a simple matter. Otherwise, the rewards would not be so generous. Don't get your hopes up. Most relics are left behind by super experts, and they have extremely powerful seals. Although I have an extraordinary sense for spiritual treasures, I can't pass through these seals that contain the supreme laws of the world. This is a great opportunity and great luck left behind by an ancient expert. Only those who have this kind of opportunity and luck can find it. However, the Demon Cloud Mountain Range runs through several big countries. There are countless spiritual herbs and demonic beasts. You can go in and cultivate. At this moment, the treasure-hunting sword spirit said in Chen Hao's mind. Well, let's try my luck. The aura of the relics should appear at a fixed time every year, but no one has found the entrance. Of course, it's not that simple. If I'm lucky enough to find it, that would be the best. It doesn't matter if I can't find it. The Demon Cloud Mountain itself is very suitable for training, and I can also meet the genius disciples of other countries, Chen Hao said in his mind. As he spoke, he walked to the window to accept the task. Soon, he received the detailed information of the task and a special antique token. What surprised Chen Hao was that this token turned out to be a magical communication rune. As long as he poured his yuan qi into it, the message could be sent back to the Royal New Show Hall at the fastest speed. It was very precious and only this kind of special task would be issued. After Chen Hao accepted the task, he returned to the dormitory again because of the time limit of the task. Knock, knock, knock. Knock, knock, knock. Chen Hao went directly to Helian Wuzi's door and knocked according to the way he and Moyui had agreed on. Hearing the rhythm of the knocking, Helian Wuzi would know that it was Chen Hao. Walala, wait! The sound of water splashing and Helian Wuzi's voice came from the room. Others might not be able to hear it, but Chen Hao's extraordinary hearing could hear it clearly. This girl is taking a bath? Chen Hao frowned slightly, shook his head, and threw away the unhealthy thoughts in his mind. It was human nature to eat and lust. Chen Hao originally had the heart of an adult man, and now as he grew older, his body matured day by day. Facing a stunning girl like Helian Wuzi, it was normal to have some kind of desire. However, the current Chen Hao directly erased any of his thoughts. The land of warmth, the tomb of heroes. He understood this logic. Squeak! A moment later, Helian Wuzi's hair was dripping wet, like a lotus flower emerging from the water. Her beautiful little face carried a trace of redness after coming out of the bath. She was radiant and her whole body emitted a faint virgin fragrance as she appeared in front of Chen Hao. "Why are you back?" Helian Wuzi asked, a little surprised. "I took a mission, and it may take 3 months to go back and forth, so I came back to tell you. These 205 elements spirit pills, 100 of which are of the metal attribute, are for Xiao Mo to refine and comprehend. 100 of which are of the mist attribute derived from the water attribute. You can refine and comprehend it yourself. If I don't come back, you can cultivate in seclusion, don't take on missions. Understand? Oh, there are still many 5 elements spirit pills. After I go out, I will go to the Chamber of Commerce in the Great Thousand City to exchange for some elixirs. By the way, I will see if I can help you buy a storage ring. Tell Xiao Mo. I'm leaving." Chen Hao just glanced at Helian Wuzi indifferently, then turned and left. The moment he turned, he said lightly, "Next time, no matter who it is, remember to put on clothes before opening the door." "I'm talking about underwear." "Underwear?" Helian Wuzi was slightly stunned. She looked down at her clothes, but then her little face became hot. She also heard Chen Hao knocking on the door and thought it was urgent, so she put on her clothes at the fastest speed and came out. She didn't think about anything else at all, but who would have thought that even she could see 2 clearly protruding little dots? How could they be exposed? When did they become so big? When she thought of being seen by Chen Hao and being scolded, she was so angry that her delicate body trembled. She waved her little fists at Chen Hao's back and scolded, "You bastard!" 3rd update, looking for guaranteed monthly votes and subscriptions. The new book is very needed to be put on the shelves. Please, everyone, Wushan will write with all his might. There is still around 7 o'clock in the evening. 4th update. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for recommendation and monthly vote. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 99. Under Huang Qi's stunned gaze, Chen Hao returned the 4 secret manuals and headed straight for the exit of the Royal New Show Hall. Walking out of the Imperial family's New Excellence Hall's main door, a gray fog once again appeared in front of his eyes. The main door was clearly beside him, but he could no longer catch a glimpse of its shadow. Traces of a mysterious aura still filled the fog. Even though it was his second time seeing it, Chen Hao was still shocked. After confirming the direction, Chen Hao's figure flashed and disappeared into the fog at lightning speed. The sky was high for the birds to fly, and the sea was wide for the fish to swim. Chen Hao, who walked out of the Royal New Show Hall alone, was like a bird that had been released from its cage. He no longer had any scruples. His figure was as fast as lightning as he advanced through the barren mountain range in the forbidden area. Along the way, many disciples who went out on missions were overtaken by him. After a few hours, he finally arrived at the official road. To reach the destination, I have to pass through nearly half of the Zhenyuan Kingdom, which is nearly 10,000 kilometers. At my current speed, I should be able to reach it in about 10 days. I'm not in a hurry. I'll go to the Great Thousand City and prepare first. Chen Hao thought to himself as he sensed the vigorous Yuan Qi and the boundless mental strength in his mind. According to the mission information, the aura of the relic would appear about 20 days later. If there were no accidents along the way, he would definitely be able to make it in time. It didn't matter even if he was a few days late. After all, the aura of the relic would appear for 2 months. Now, Chen Hao should be going out alone for the first time, so he needed to prepare some things. "Brother Chen? Hello." As Chen Hao ran on the official road and quickly approached the Great Thousand City, 2 youths, 1 male and 1 female, were walking in front of Chen Hao. They seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll, but their speed was extremely fast. However, they were obviously not as fast as Chen Hao. Just as Chen Hao was about to pass by the 2 of them, one of the youths suddenly spoke up. "Hello." Chen Hao slowed down and cupped his fists slightly. Chun Hao had a deep impression of these two people. They were the personal disciples of some big shot, and their cultivations were lower than the Emperor realm. They were the new disciples of Cold Moon Hall, Chen Si and Xiao He. Are you going to do missions as well? Xiao He smiled and said, originally, when we were advancing to Martial Monarch, we wanted to form a team with the three of you. But you guys often don't leave the house, so we don't want to disturb you. Brother Chun, what level of mission did you take? Xiao He and Chen Si were both 15 years old. Other than Chun Hao, they were probably the two youngest people in the new show hall. However, the way they spoke and acted revealed a sense of maturity. There's nothing we can do. We're too weak. We can only cultivate with all our might. A few senior brothers and senior sisters that I know have accepted a special mission to search for ruins and are chasing after them. By the way, Brother Xiao, I wonder if you are familiar with the Great Thousand City? Chun Hao said with some reservations. He had deliberately left Fong Qing aside, so naturally, he did not want to associate with others. He said this just in case. A mission to find the ruins? We're the same. Of course, we're familiar with the Great Thousand City. We grew up in the Great Thousand City. The quiet girl, Chun Hao, seemed to be quite curious about Chun Hao. She said, "What's the matter?" "I want to buy a better sword and a fasting pill." Chun Hao said, "If that's the case, then go directly to the Luyun Chamber of Commerce. You'll definitely find something you like." The Luyun Chamber of Commerce is the largest cultivator chamber of commerce led by the royal family of the Zhenyuan Kingdom and jointly established by many major forces. There's an auction every other day. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll go first. I still have to chase after them. Okay. The two of them said. Although they did not know who Chun Hao's senior brothers and senior sisters were, they could clearly feel that Chun Hao did not have any intention of going with them. Of course, they did not want to go with Chun Hao either. Searching for ruins was not as dangerous as exploring the Xianhuang ruins. Their purpose was just to try their luck and gain experience. Chun Hao cupped his fists before his figure suddenly sped up like a wisp of smoke, and it wasn't long before he vanished from their fields of vision. Looking at Chun Hao's disappearing figure, Xiao He smiled slightly and said, "This Chun Hao's strength has increased quite quickly. It's said that he has already reached the peak of 4th grade martial monarch in Xianhuang Ancient City and has the battle strength of a 5th grade martial monarch. Yeah, I don't think he's weaker than us." Chen Si said, "We have to work hard too. We're all direct disciples. It'll be embarrassing if we lose, okay? Don't worry, we won't be weaker than him." The two of them clearly did not know that Chun Hao had already defeated Dongfang Zhan. Otherwise, they would not have said that. Great Thousand City, the Luyun Chamber of Commerce was located in the most prosperous area of the city center. It was dazzling and majestic. Dense qi shrouded the surroundings of the huge palace. It was obvious that an extremely powerful restriction had been set up. There were all kinds of people coming in and out. Some of them were dressed like rich people, some were ordinary people, and there were even more people who wore bamboo hats to cover themselves up. However, without exception, they all emitted a powerful aura. They were obviously cultivators. After entering the entrance, there was a huge palace. This was the reception center of the Luyun Chamber of Commerce. In the luxurious and spacious hall, there were beautiful attendants who were dressed elegantly and gracefully. When they saw the guests coming in, they would welcome them. Their sense of service was not inferior to that of a modern city. What was far superior was that these young girls were all cultivators. Moreover, they were all martial masters. At this moment, a figure slowly walked over. He was dressed in black and wore a black bamboo hat. His figure was not tall, but the aura he emitted was clearly that of a martial monarch expert. "Sir, is there anything I can help you with?" An attendant's eyes revealed a trace of surprise and joy. He went up to welcome him, bowed slightly, and said respectfully, The other attendants were slightly envious. It was not that this person was very strong. Based on his aura, they could guess that this person should be a martial monarch expert. This alone was not a big deal. After all, the Luyun Chamber of Commerce was the largest chamber of commerce in the Jinyuan kingdom. They saw countless martial monarchs in a day. There were even many martial monarchs. However, this person was very young. Observing people's expressions was a necessary quality for these attendants. Although this person covered up very well, they could be sure from his exposed hands and body shape. Such a young martial monarch must have a very high status. To be able to receive such a person, it was very likely that they would be able to make a big deal. "Do you sell storage rings here?" the person asked directly. His voice was indeed very young. This person was none other than Chern Hao in disguise. After all, he needed a lot of pills. For him who had already obtained the 5 elements spiritual root, the 5 elements spiritual pill could only be treated as an ordinary pill. That would be too wasteful. It was more cost-effective to exchange it for ordinary spiritual herbs. He also bought 3 more storage rings. He gave one each to Helian Wuzi and Moyui, and used the remaining one for himself. Although he did not need it, he needed to use it to hide his identity. Before he was strong enough, he could not expose the fact that he had obtained the Heaven and Earth Ring and the 5 spiritual swords. He did not have the background of the 3 great clans, so he could only advance step by step. "Storage rings? Yes, yes. Sir, please come in. I'll take you to see the manager. Storage rings are more valuable things," the young girl said with a hint of surprise. "Okay," Chern Hao replied. Passing through the luxurious hall, Chern Hao walked into the Chamber of Commerce under the guidance of the young female attendant. A dazzling array of weapons, ores, and some unknown strange items were placed on the crystal counters. Countless people were choosing among them. Such popularity was indeed not something an ordinary chamber of commerce could compare to. Chern Hao followed the attendant and looked around to see if there was anything that interested him. The treasure-hunting sword spirit in his mind also sensed the aura around him. "Sir, please wait here for a moment. I'll call the manager, okay?" Chern Hao replied and casually browsed through the weapons placed beside him. A few flying daggers fell into Chern Hao's eyes. "Sir, what do you need?" The attendant at the counter saw Chern Hao's gaze and immediately said respectfully, "Is this a flying dagger? You can take a look. It's made by a master craftsman. The material is iron essence that has been tempered thousands of times. It's hard and extremely sharp. The price is also moderate. It only costs 10 level 6 spiritual herbs or elixirs." "So expensive?" Chern Hao took the flying dagger from the attendant and said with a little surprise. He, little brother, this is not expensive. The items in our Luyun Chamber of Commerce are not ordinary items. I guarantee that you will get your money's worth." The flying dagger was as thin as a cicada's wing and exuded a cold aura. Purely based on the feeling, it was indeed much better than the small dagger that his father had given him. Moreover, it was more suitable as a hidden weapon. Wow! Just as Chern Hao was holding the flying dagger and sizing it up, the surrounding crowd suddenly became restless. Chern Hao also hurriedly turned his head to look. "Hello, Director Yun. Director Yun, you're getting more and more beautiful." A stunning figure appeared in front of Chern Hao's eyes. Wearing a purple long dress, her skin was whiter than snow. Her entire body exuded a graceful and luxurious luster. The slightly low neckline made her exposed jade-like neck look particularly attractive. The fitting long dress showed off her graceful and enchanting exquisite figure. Her slender waist was like a swaying willow branch, oval face, willow leaf eyebrows, red phoenix eyes, cherry lip. Her exquisite appearance revealed a graceful and luxurious elegance. It also contained a natural charm. Purely looking at this woman's appearance, she was at most 20 years old. However, her extremely enchanting figure and dressing exuded a more mature charm. She did not have the slightest bit of youthfulness of a young girl. The woman smiled faintly and frequently nodded in response to the greetings of the crowd. She seemed to be used to the burning gazes. Following a young female attendant, she walked straight towards Chen Hao. "Sir, this is our director Yun." When the young female attendant brought the woman to Chen Hao's side, she introduced her. Chen Hao's eyes, which were hidden behind the veil, narrowed slightly. Even he did not expect that the so-called director would be such an enchanting woman. In his heart, he could not help but admire the business acumen of the Luyun Chamber of Commerce. With such a stunning woman, most men would be too embarrassed to bargain. They would even puff themselves up at their own cost. Fourth update: 12,000 plus outburst has ended. Brothers and sisters, please support and subscribe. Those who have guaranteed monthly votes, please also vote for Dark Mountain. The new book on the shelves needs everyone's encouragement. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 100. Thank you to Xiaofeng Sendrizzle for 100,000 coins to promote to Ao Tian's Alliance Master. Summers you small copy for 100,000 coins to promote to Alliance Master. Shizhu Female Sign Girl for 100,000 coins to promote to Alliance Master. Thank you to Tian, Jibei Chinfeng, Air Shi, Swaying Drunken Red, and Cold Moon Song for 10,000 coins. Thank you to GMO for 5,888 coins and monthly vote. Thank you to Chuan Liang Wuzi, Xin Zhe Xiechin, Qin Lu, Passionate Love Kama? Luo Shi. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hello. Chen Hao greeted her indifferently. The woman smiled slightly, and her gaze wavered imperceptibly. Then, the smile on her face deepened. Hello, shall we talk in the VIP room? Okay. I'll take all of these throwing knives. Can I take them away first? Of course. Hearing Chen Hao's words, the woman looked at the attendant behind the counter and smiled. Help this gentleman put them away. Under many burning gazes, Chen Hao took the 9 flying knives and walked side by side with the woman into the VIP room. After both of them sat down, Chen Hao took the 9 flying knives. The woman smiled sweetly and said, "You sound very young. It's rare to be promoted to Martial Emperor at such a young age. If I'm not wrong, you should be a disciple of the Royal New Show Hall, right?" "HM?" The woman's first sentence made Chen Hao frown. Don't worry. Our Luyun Chamber of Commerce is confidential to all customers. You should know that we are the royal family, which is an official organization. The new show hall is not a secret to our Luyun Chamber of Commerce. The disciples of the new show hall are also one of our main customers. My name is Yunfian, one of the directors of the Luyun Chamber of Commerce. It's nice to meet you. Yun Fei Yan's beautiful eyes stared at Chen Hao as she spoke. A faint fragrance of orchids wafted around her body, and it seemed to contain a trace of strange fluctuations. This was not some kind of seduction skill, but Yunfian's innate charm. If it was an ordinary man in close contact with her, he would have more or less been subdued by her charm. However, Chen Hao, who was staring at this enchanting and seductive beauty through the veil, curled his lips and said straightforwardly, "I'm sorry, Director Yun. Since I came out like this, I naturally don't want to reveal my identity. Let's get down to business. I need a storage ring." Hearing Chen Hao's words, Yun Fei Yan was slightly taken aback, but then she smiled sweetly and said, "It's all right. We have storage rings here, but they are all low and medium-grade storage rings. High-grade storage rings will only appear during the auction. Can you introduce it to me in detail? Capacity, price, etc. I haven't seen a storage ring before." Chen Hao asked. "Of course. A low-level storage ring is 5 feet square. It's enough to store ordinary weapons and supplies. The price is 1,000 level 6 spirit pills. A middle-level storage ring is 10 feet square. The price is 20,000 level 6 spirit pills. A high-level storage ring is 3 feet square and above. It's not fixed. The bigger the space, the higher the price. So expensive? Chen Hao said in surprise. This is the special price given by the disciples of the new show hall. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to buy it at such a low price. Yunfian said, "Which one do you want? If it's a low-level or middle-level storage ring, you can buy it now. If it's a high-level storage ring, you have to wait for the auction. It's not certain when it will be available. I want a low-level storage ring. I want 3. Can you give me a discount?" Chen Hao didn't care about the beauty's identity and bargained. "Haha. Little brother, I've said that the Luyun Chamber of Commerce has always sold the storage rings at the lowest price for the disciples of the Royal New Show Hall. You will all be important figures in the Zhenyuan Kingdom in the future. How can we ask for a high price from you? Okay. Can I buy it with this kind of spirit pills?" Even though Chen Hao knew that a storage ring would be expensive, he didn't expect it to be so expensive. A low-level storage ring actually cost 1,000 level 6 spirit pills. What did 1,000 level 6 spirit pills mean? Even all the spirit pills in the Xiao family wouldn't be enough. Yunfian looked at the spirit pills in Chen Hao's hand and was surprised. 5 elements spirit pills? You are buying with this? Is there a problem? No problem. Of course, there's no problem. Yunfian hurriedly said, but she was very surprised. The Luyun Chamber of Commerce had learned about the Royal New Show Hall in Xianhuang Ancient City as soon as possible. At this moment, the Chamber of Commerce's top executives had already gone to the Royal New Show Hall to see if they could buy a part of it. How do you calculate it? One is worth several level 6 spirit pills? Our new show hall's ratio is 1 to 10. Since you know about the new show hall, you should also know that it's part of my obligation to exchange in the new show hall. I can also get a reward corresponding to the level of benefit. This isn't something that can be measured with spirit pills. Don't worry. I'll give you a satisfactory price. 1 to 30. One 5 elements spirit pill is worth 30 level 6 spirit pills. Deal. These are 205 elements spirit pills, which is equivalent to 6,000 level 6 spirit pills. After deducting 3,000 from the 3 storage rings, the remaining 3,000 will be deducted from the 9 throwing knife. Help me exchange them for level 7 spirit pills, Chen Hao said straightforwardly. 1 to 30 was better than he had imagined. It seemed that it was indeed as Yunfian said. The disciples of the Royal New Show Hall were given special treatment here. Therefore, he was too embarrassed to haggle over the price. No problem, hee. How about I give you the throwing knives as a gift? Yunfian suddenly said with a charming smile, her eyes full of seduction. Chen Hao faintly smiled and said directly, "Is there a condition?" "You're really smart, hee. The condition is very simple. This senior sister just wants to get to know you. There will be more opportunities for cooperation in the future." Yunfian smiled. Her tone was natural, intimate, but not flattering. Yet, it seemed a bit strange to call herself senior sister. How did she become senior sister? How come she's so close? Yunfian naturally saw the value of Chen Hao. She knew the details of the mysterious yellow treasure house for the first time. Most of the disciples only got 20 to 35 elements spirit pills, but Chen Hao took out 205 elements spirit pills. So, how could it be 205 elements spirit pills? To be able to get so many spirit pills among the geniuses, he naturally had the ability that ordinary people didn't have. Such a character, if she established a good relationship with him, it would certainly bring her great benefits in the future. As for calling herself senior sister, she naturally had her reasons. Senior sister? With such a beautiful senior sister like you, I naturally have no objection. But, don't be surprised. Later, you will understand why I call myself senior sister. Senior sister knows what you want to say. It's just that you don't want the people of the Royal New Show Hall to know that you got so many 5 elements spirit pills. You can rest assured that the Chamber of Commerce has its own rules. Any buyer or seller's information will not be disclosed. Of course, even if you don't agree, Senior Sister also knows who you are. Yunfian interrupted Chun Hao. Her seductive face shone with confidence as she said with a smile. You can guess? Your voice and figure indicate that you're less than 15 years old. And the aura that you're exuding should be at the lower middle level of the Emperor level. So, you should be one of the new disciples of the Imperial family's new Excellence Hall. Moreover, you should be a direct disciple. In this batch of personal disciples, your 3 halls have a total of 13 people. Among the 13, there are 4 females, 9 males, and 9 males. Among the 9 males, Senior Sister knows 5 of them and has never seen the other 4. 2 of them are disciples of Zhang clan, the strongest clan in Arjun Yuan Kingdom other than the 3 great clans. Zhang clan's disciples all cultivate the Wild Blade Heart Sutra and can be seen at a glance. They can be eliminated. The remaining 2 were personally selected by Chairman Fang Yuan in Lan-Tsang Province's Cloud State County. One is called Moue and the other is called Chun Hao. Moreover, he took Chun Hao as his disciple. Moue contains a trace of sword intent and never leaves his sword. Chun Hao has a physique with both will and martial arts. You are Chun Hao. And I am Chairman Fang Yuan's personal disciple. Cough cough, Chun Hao was a little dumbfounded. No matter what, he did not expect the enchanting woman in front of him to know the Royal New Show Hall like the back of her hand. It was as if every disciple's name and characteristics were clearly in her mind. He had covered himself up so tightly, but he still could not escape her eyes. Senior Sister is right? Junior brother Chun Hao? I'll take the flying dagger, thank you. I'm in a hurry. You should hurry up and help me get the storage ring and spirit pills. Chun Hao shrugged and said a little speechlessly. Since I've received the gift, I should at least show it to Senior Sister, right? After all, Senior Sister often goes to the new show hall. Yunfian's lips curled up as she stared at Chun Hao. She was very clear about her charm, but Chun Hao in front of her seemed to turn a blind eye to her beauty. Even though she had guessed it, he did not intend to reveal his true appearance and looked like he was in a hurry to leave. Is that okay? Chun Hao took off his bamboo hat and said. Seeing Chun Hao's handsome face, Yunfian was slightly stunned, but then she stared at Chun Hao and said, Do you hate Senior Sister? No. I just don't like women who are too beautiful and too smart. Thank you for the compliment. Senior Sister is smart only for outsiders. In the future, if you need anything or want to sell something, remember to come to Senior Sister. Senior Sister will definitely take care of you. Yunfian said with a charming smile. Only 13 years old, you're even smarter than Senior Sister. Okay, Senior Sister will prepare it for you. It will be ready soon. This should be the area, right? 13 days later, Chun Hao appeared in a barren mountain forest. He stood at the top of a mountain and stared at the towering mountain in the distance, confirming with the mission map. The Demon Cloud mountain range stretched for tens of thousands of kilometers and ran through several countries. This area was the border area of the 4 great kingdoms, and also the area where the aura of the relic appeared. After bidding farewell to the enchanting Senior Sister, Chun Hao traveled day and night, and it took him a total of 13 days to arrive. At this moment, he was still wearing a black robe, but he had taken off his bamboo hat. Gazing at the figure in the distance that occasionally drilled into the mountain forest, Chun Hao could basically confirm that this was the edge of the mission area. After confirming the direction, Chun Hao operated the Art of Solitude in the remnant volume of the Art of Longevity to the 3rd level. Immediately, his aura was completely restrained, and he plunged into the barren mountain forest. There were still a few days before the aura of the relic fluctuated, and Chun Hao didn't want to waste time. Moreover, whether or not he could find the relic was just a matter of luck, and Chen Hao didn't have much hope. After all, the treasure-hunting sword spirit had said that most relics were sealed by super experts, and even he couldn't sense the entrance of the relic. This required opportunity and luck. Therefore, Chen Hao's main purpose was to gain experience, and with the help of the treasure-hunting sword spirit, it would be good to harvest some elixirs. However, as Chen Hao went deeper into the core area of the mission area, he didn't sense any demonic beast's aura for 4 hours. Instead, he sensed the aura of many cultivators, as if all the demonic beasts had disappeared into thin air. This was extremely strange for the Demon Cloud Mountain Range. P.S. First update. Begging for monthly votes, begging for subscriptions. I'm really shocked. 23,000 fans, but the subscription rate is not even 21, only 900. I'm very hurt. I beg for those who have the means and the ability to support and subscribe. Wushan can only write 1 chapter in 4 hours, and it only costs a few cents. I beg for everyone's help. Please rest assured, no matter how bad the results are, Wushan will steadily update until the end. An average of 200,000 words per month is achievable. This Wushan will do his best, with all his strength. I only hope that everyone can support and subscribe. Thank you very much. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 101. The hazy sky was gloomy even though it was daytime. It was filled with an oppressive aura. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 7 days. As time passed, countless experts began to pour into this area, and the oppressive aura became heavier and heavier. The sky was covered with thick dark clouds, and no sunlight could be seen. Everyone felt as if there was a mountain pressing down on their hearts. Although their bodies did not feel any discomfort, they still felt a sense of suffocation. Rumble in a secluded cave, Chen Hao, who was in the middle of cultivation, suddenly exited from his cultivation state as his body shone with a resplendent brown light. A few days ago, Chen Hao found this cave and started cultivating when he couldn't find any spirit herbs or demonic beasts. After all, there were still a few days before the aura of the relic appeared. He didn't want to waste his time in this meaningless search. He had already reached the peak of the 4th stage Emperor realm. Although he wanted to stabilize his realm through fighting, he couldn't find any demonic beast. Now, he didn't have to deliberately stimulate the barrier. He naturally stepped into the 5th stage Emperor realm. Both his intent and martial arts had advanced. But now, he was forced to stop cultivating. A huge rumbling sound seemed to come from the depths of the earth. It made the whole earth tremble. Creaking sounds came from the cave. Gravel rolled and dust billowed. It seemed that the cave was about to collapse. At the same time, the entrance of the cave lit up. The hazy sky shone with a bright light. Whoosh! What's going on? Chen Hao rushed out of the cave as fast as lightning. He raised his head and looked at the light pillar in the distance. His eyes shone with extreme shock. What a rich spirit chi! Why are you still in a daze? Let's go and have a look. At this moment, a violent fluctuation came from Chen Hao's mind. The voice of the treasure-hunting sword spirit also appeared in Chen Hao's mind. Bang! Chen Hao stomped his feet. Like a rock spreading its wings, he turned into a streamer and flew toward the dissipating light pillar. Is this the aura of the relic? It's completely different from what the mission book said. Since I stepped into this area, everything seems strange. Chen Hao said in his mind as he moved forward quickly. It's the aura of the relic. The aura of this relic should have appeared for many years, but it had never been discovered. The strange situation this time might be a good thing for you people. Be careful, there are many auras that are stronger than yours. I can sense that the spatial fluctuations in this area are extremely intense, said the treasure-hunting sword spirit. Intense spatial fluctuations? What do you mean? It's the collision between the space of the relic and the space we're in. If I'm not wrong, this relic has existed for a very, very long time. However, no one with great luck has ever obtained it. It's on the verge of collapse. Collapse? Are you saying that the ruins are going to disappear? Yes. There were many relics in the world, and most of them were inheritances left behind by super expert. Moreover, these ruins were supported by powerful restrictions and formations. For example, the Xianwang ancient city ruins wanted to inherit the 5 elements spiritual roots. After you obtain the heartless spiritual root, the mysterious yellow treasure vault can be opened. After you obtain the mysterious yellow ring and the 5 elemental spirit swords that support the restriction, the mysterious yellow relic will collapse. Of course, even if no one obtains the 5 elemental spirit root, the mysterious yellow relic will still collapse as time passes. Now, the situation of the ruins may be on the verge of collapse. That's why such a change has occurred. Rumble, an even more terrifying sound was heard. The earth trembled, the mountains shook, and countless huge rocks rolled down. The speed at which the light beam dissipated seemed to have accelerated. A strong ancient aura and majestic spiritual chi of heaven and earth instantly enveloped an area of 100 miles. The entrance to the ruins may be opening. Quick, don't hold back any more strength. Let's go and have a look, said the treasure-hunting sword spirit suddenly. Chen Hao was shocked in his heart. He immediately put on the black bamboo hat. Then, he stimulated the primary power and spiritual power in his entire body. The two kinds of energy fused together. Chen Hao was pleasantly surprised. He had just stepped into the 5th-grade martial emperor realm. However, he felt as if he had escaped from the gravity at this moment. His entire body flew high into the sky and turned into a streamer of light. The brown spiritual chi had turned into a light blue light that symbolized a martial emperor. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, while Chen Hao was frantically rushing over, the genius disciples who had been waiting in the core area also stared at the gradually dissipating light beam in shock and approached it at the fastest speed. Among them, more than 10 figures were flying in the air. Obviously, they had stepped into the martial emperor stage or the 7th stage emperor stage. Otherwise, no matter how fast they were, they couldn't completely fly in the air. Among these figures, there was Fang Qing and the 8th stage emperor stage in her team, as well as the number 1 expert among the new disciples of the Royal New Show Hall, Zhao Yunfei. In addition to the 3 of them, the other figures flying in the air were not disciples of the Royal New Show Hall. Obviously, they were genius disciples from the other 3 kingdoms. Chen Hao? When Fang Qing saw Chen Hao, she suddenly cried out in surprise. Chen Hao smiled and walked slowly to Fang Qing's side. When he was a few miles away from the light beam, he quietly landed. He took off his black clothes and bamboo hat and changed into the Royal New Show Hall's attire. Chen Hao was very clear that the mission to find the entrance to the ruins this time had completely deviated from the original track, causing everyone to gather here. Fierce conflicts were inevitable. In the past, when doing this mission, the disciples of the 4 kingdoms had been in constant conflict. However, these were all small group conflicts. But now, everyone was gathered here. Once a conflict broke out, it would be a competition between the disciples of the 4 great kingdoms' royal families' new Excellence Hall. If they were not united, they would definitely suffer. Chen Hao couldn't appear with his bamboo hat. If he did, he would probably be attacked by all the disciples of the 4 kingdoms. Because this mission could only be done by the disciples of the Royal New Show Hall of the 4 kingdoms. And now, the situation was exactly as Chen Hao had imagined. The dozen or so experts that had arrived first were clearly divided into 4 groups. They surrounded the dissipating light beam and looked at the other groups with hostility. Of the 4 groups, the Zhenyuan kingdom only had 3 people: Fang Qing, her group of youngsters, and Zhao Yunfei. As for the other 3 kingdoms, 2 had 4 people and 1 had 5 people. Fortunately, Zhao Yunfei, who had become a rank 1 martial emperor half a year ago, was clearly much more powerful. "Didn't you say that you weren't coming?" Fang Qing asked in a low voice. "Senior sister, I said that I would consider it. Later on, I couldn't find a suitable mission. So, I chased after you. But your speed was too fast. I didn't manage to catch up." Chen Hao said, "What's going on?" "I'm afraid that the spirit formation protecting this remnant is on the verge of collapse. To us, this is an opportunity. Perhaps when this light beam disappears, the remnant will open. Junior brother, come with us later. This is Lu Yunfeng, a rank 8 intent emperor. He is your true senior brother. You should know this person." After Fang Qing finished introducing Lu Yunfeng, she pointed to Zhao Yunfei and said. Zhao Yunfei glanced at Chen Hao arrogantly. He had an overbearing attitude. "I don't know him." Chen Hao originally wanted to say that he knew him. However, when he saw Zhao Yunfei's appearance, he shook his head disdainfully. Zhao Yunfei frowned slightly. "Are you serious?" Fang Qing was slightly astonished. She said, "His name is Zhao Yunfei, the number 1 expert of your batch. This time, it might be very dangerous. We must stick together." "Fang Qing, is he useful?" "He has only become a martial emperor not long ago. Yet, he is hindering us. Once the remnant's entrance opens, it will only last for a short moment. I don't want to bring a burden with me." Although Chen Hao's cultivation is low, he has the strength to defeat a rank 6 martial monarch, I can instantly kill him with just 10% of my strength. You think that's useful? Look at his strength. If we go, we will only be throwing away our lives. I don't want to be distracted by protecting him. Fang Qing frowned slightly. Just as she was about to say something, she was suddenly interrupted by a strange fluctuation. Hiss, 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 the pillar of light that was getting dimmer and dimmer suddenly flickered with a wave-like fluctuation. It seemed to have condensed into a transparent water ball with a diameter of several zhang. "It's opening. Quick, go in." Fang Qing's eyes narrowed as she hurriedly said. While Fang Qing was speaking, several figures had already rushed toward the water ball as fast as lightning. Fang Qing and Lu Yunfeng also followed one after another. "Quick!" the treasure-hunting sword's spirit anxiously urged in his mind. Obviously, the treasure-hunting sword's spirit had already sensed that the passage would only last for a short moment. However, the cold-looking Chen Hao still did not move. "F***ck your mother!" Chen Hao cursed angrily. He suddenly stomped his feet and rushed into the water ball. There was nothing he could do. Chen Hao felt very stifled. In this world, everything was decided by strength. How could he, who was proud and arrogant, endure Zhao Yunfei's arrogant words? Hiss, after more than a dozen figures, Chen Hao was the last one to enter the water ball. A strange fluctuation instantly enveloped his body. What surprised Chen Hao and everyone else was that this water ball did not seem to be a teleportation portal, but an extremely powerful restriction. Everyone, including Chen Hao, was bound by a power that was completely beyond their understanding the moment they entered. Everyone's eyes widened in horror as they tumbled inside without any resistance. Whoosh! Just after Chen Hao entered, a graceful figure flew in the air. It was impossible to see her appearance clearly. She was as fast as lightning and silently rushed into the water ball. If Chen Hao and the others were still outside, they would definitely be able to sense that the aura of that graceful figure far surpassed all of them. However, at that moment they did not notice that figure entering the water ball. That power that was completely beyond their understanding turned into invisible tendrils that seeped into their bodies through their pores. Even their minds could not escape or resist it. Everyone, including the graceful figure that entered last, sank into extreme pain. It was as if needles were stabbing into their souls, invading every inch of their bodies and every cell. P.S. Consolation for monthly votes. Dark Mountain has been dealt a heavy blow. 23,000 favorites, and only a few subscriptions. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. I was full of confidence and thought that I could surpass the previous book by a lot. I did not expect this kind of result. When Dark Sky was published, it only had 13,000 favorite. The first day's subscription was 700. Proud Heaven only had 200 more. The first day's subscription was 900. Proud Heaven only had 200 more. The first day's subscription was 900. My heart was bitterly disappointed. Since I stayed up all night, I was groggy and only wrote 2 chapters. I slept to adjust my state of mind. I hope that my friends who read Proud Heaven will not be stingy with their subscriptions. That is the guarantee of Dark Mountain's livelihood, and also the source of my passion for writing. Please support Dark Mountain with a bit of passion and subscribe. Those who have monthly votes, please vote for Dark Mountain. Thank you. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidien.com to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 102. In just half a minute or so, more than a dozen figures cried out at the same time. Like arrows, they shot out in all directions from the water ball. They tumbled and flew for more than 100 feet before stabilizing themselves and landing on the ground. Bang! At the same time, the water ball let out a muffled explosion and dissipated. The dozen figures all had lifeless expressions, as if they had been drained of their strength. Their faces were pale as they stared at the water ball that was no different from their surroundings. Zhao Yunfei, Fong Qing, Lu Yunfeng, and the 13 people from the other 3 kingdoms were all present. Where's Chun Hao? Fong Qing looked around and did not see Chun Hao's figure. She said in shock, could it be that he, choosing the inheritance of the remnants? How is this possible? That brat was only a mid-grade martial emperor. Why would it choose him? A genius youth from the great Qian kingdom, who looked at most 15 years old but whose aura had clearly reached the martial emperor realm, said with an extremely ugly expression. This genius youth was called Yi Mingho. He was only 14 years old and was the 3rd prince of the great Qian kingdom. He was only a year older than Chun Hao. He started cultivating when he was 12 and became a martial emperor when he was 13. He became a martial emperor before he was 14. His cultivation talent and comprehension were rarely seen in 100 years. He was known as the #1 genius of the great Qian kingdom. Furthermore, he replaced his elder brother as the crown prince of the great Qian kingdom. Even Chun Hao could not be compared to him for the time being. The reason was very simple. Although Chun Hao had only cultivated for a little more than a year and became a rank 5 martial emperor and martial emperor were 2 different concepts. Even if Chun Hao was a rank 9 martial emperor, it could only be said that Chun Hao had hopes of surpassing Yi Mingho. Only when Chun Hao became a martial emperor would he be able to reach the same level. That was because the barrier from martial emperor to martial emperor could not be broken without extremely high comprehension and physical talent. Merely from the Royal New Show Hall, one could tell that Dongfang Jun, Bailey Yen and Zhuge Qinyun were already rank 9 martial monarchs when they entered the Royal New Show Hall. They were all first-rate geniuses. Yet, even after several months had passed, they still had not broken through to martial emperor. Even Dongfang Jun, who had been cleansed and reborn by a super expert and had no bottlenecks before becoming a martial saint, had only just begun his closed-door training to break through to the martial emperor realm. It was not certain when he would succeed. One could imagine how difficult it was to break through the bottleneck from the martial emperor realm to the martial emperor realm. Legacy selection? Crown Prince. Do you mean that kid entered the ruins? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. It must be because his cultivation was too low that he was killed by the water ball. How can my, Yi Mingho's, talent be compared to that brat? Humph. Even if he enters the ruins, he'll probably die of old age inside too. Is the inheritance so easy to obtain? Mingho said with a gloomy expression. Although he said so, he knew in his heart that the kid might have really entered the ruins. The 4 youths beside Yun Mingho were also martial emperors. However, it was obvious that Yun Mingho was their core. Of course. How can our crown prince's talent and comprehension be compared to a puny martial emperor? Yes, Crown Prince Mingho is a once-in-a-thousand-years genius. If that brat is really lucky enough to be chosen, he'll also die of old age inside. While Mingho and the others were talking, many disciples from various countries arrived one after another. The hazy sky and the thick dark clouds began to dissipate quickly. The ancient aura of the ruins also disappeared. The originally dense fluctuation of heaven and earth spiritual qi also ceased to exist. Fang Qing, Zhao Yunfei, and the genius disciples from various countries also frowned deeply. Obviously, most of the disciples who came from powerful forces were very knowledgeable. They had already realized that Chen Hao might have entered the ruins. It was very likely that he would also obtain the inheritance of the ruins. More and more people gathered. Fang Qing's group, Zhao Yunfei's group, and the small groups from various countries were all discussing animatedly. From time to time, people would look at Fang Qing. Obviously, Chen Hao had become the center of everyone's discussion. As for Fang Qing, who had a good relationship with Chen Hao, she became the focus of everyone's attention. This situation lasted for more than 10 minutes before people chose to leave one after another. Once the inheritance of the ruins was entered in this way, only by truly obtaining the inheritance would one be able to open the entrance of the ruins and walk out. Otherwise, one would have to wait until the ruins collapsed and turn into ashes along with the ruins. True geniuses who had reached the martial emperor level like Mingho and Zhao Yunfei were of course not afraid. However, Chen Hao was only a martial emperor. Whether Chen Hao could successfully comprehend the power of the inheritance and walk out of the ruins was indeed a problem. Half a day later, the mission ended prematurely due to the changes in the ruins. Fang Qing and the others did not waste any message talismans. Instead, they chose to rush back to the Royal New Show Hall as quickly as possible. There was no way to rush this matter. Chen Hao had entered for at least 2 months, or even more than half a year. He might never come out. No one knew that Chen Hao was not the only one who had entered the ruins. In the ruins. Crack! Hiss! A thunderbolt exploded in the distance. Countless flashes of lightning flickered, but the strange thing was that the color of the thunderbolt was extremely mellow white. It was completely unlike the blue electric light of a real thunderbolt. Chen Hao felt as if he was in the clouds, but also as if he was floating in the water. That thunderbolt was very far away, but Chen Hao felt waves of numbness all over his body. Chen Hao was extremely shocked. His eyes were wide open as he stared at this strange space. There was no sky or earth. His entire body was covered in a vast expanse of whiteness. He was actually quietly suspended in the void. It was obviously air, but this air was viscous like liquid. It was like a white sticky substance, but miraculously, there was no feeling of suffocation. This was a type of energy that Chen Hao could not understand at all. When he inhaled, he could clearly feel it entering his body like water wave. When he exhaled, it was completely exhaled. There was actually not a trace of it that could be absorbed. Chen Hao could clearly feel the strength of this energy. He activated his mental power and origin power to the extreme, but after this gas sank into his dantian, he could not refine it at all. Kacha, what the hell is this place? What kind of energy is this? When that strange thunderbolt erupted again, Chen Hao asked in his mind in shock. But what puzzled Chen Hao was that the treasure-hunting sword spirit did not respond at all. There was not even a trace of fluctuation in its mind. It was clearly communicating with him just now, telling him that the soul-piercing pain was a test for the inheritance of the ruins to choose the person with the opportunity. As long as he passed, he would be able to enter the ruins. But why was it so silent now? Chen Hao shouted several times in his mind, but there was still no response, which made him extremely depressed. It became a coward at the crucial moment. Motherf *cur. Chen Hao could not help but curse, and he secretly hated himself for being inexperienced. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to be ignorant of the current strange situation. Chen Hao did not know that at this moment, the treasure-hunting sword's spirit was terrified to the extreme. Before entering the ruins, it was still excited. As long as Chen Hao could enter, he would definitely have a good harvest. It had already released its perception to its heart's content, and it was ready to help Chen Hao do a great job. Chen Hao was quite loyal to his friends when he obtained the harvest from the Xuanhuan treasury last time. He did not embezzle the military pay. It was much better than its previous master. Of course, it had to do its best. But what it did not expect was that because of its excitement and unreserved release, it almost lost its life. Spirit, the so-called sword spirit, saber spirit, or any weapon spirit, was a spiritual existence that could only be born after the cultivator's long-term telepathy with the weapon. It was different from the souls of humans, demon beasts, and other life forms. They were only a condensed consciousness, an object of extreme Yin, also known as a Yin spirit. The treasure-hunting sword spirit was such an existence. If its original body, which was the treasure sword, still existed, it was nothing, because that was the place it protected and lived. It was equivalent to the physical body where the human soul hid. But now it did not have a physical body at all. It was just a Yin spirit, and it lived in Chen Hao's mind. And when it fully released this aura, it happened to meet its nemesis, pure Yang vital essence. And Chen Hao quickly calmed down, his eyes shining with a bright light as he carefully looked around. His perception had been completely confined to half a meter around him. Just as Chen Hao was looking around, there was a sudden fluctuation in front of him. A hazy and illusory door appeared in front of him. On one side of the door, there was a milky white stone tablet suspended in the air. On the stone tablet there were faintly flickering words. Chen Hao didn't even think about it and quickly approached. 9 Revolving Heavenly Sun Technique? After Chen Hao saw the words on the stone tablet, his pupils shrank as he read it out loud. 9 Revolving Earth Yin Technique? A light, slightly immature, like the voice of a young girl, almost at the same time as Chen Hao, sounded from the other side of the space of the ruins. Such a dense and pure Yin remnant. I'm afraid that even father can't condense it? At least grandfather can. Grandfather said that Yu has the 9 Yin absolute meridians. This 9 Revolving Earth Yin technique will definitely be very suitable for you. The young girl's pair of beautiful eyes smiled sweetly as she said. This young girl looked to be 16 or 17 years old. Her body was curvaceous and incomparably graceful, like a fresh flower that had just ripened. A little more would be more enchanting, and a little less would make her seem slightly immature. And that small face was even more so. Her brows were picturesque, perfect to the point that there were no flaws, but the girl's clear eyes were filled with childlike innocence, like the eyes of a baby, extremely pure. It was completely incompatible with her figure and clothes. Anyone who saw this pair of eyes would probably have a tender heart. The young girl's left hand was wearing a sparkling purple bracelet. Within the bracelet, there was a faint ball of purple qi flowing, as if it was a living thing. If Chen Hao saw it, he would naturally not recognize it. Even some of the upper echelons of the Royal New Show Hall would not recognize it. But special people like Huang Qi would definitely be incomparably shocked. Purple Crystal Jade Essence. The purple crystal jade essence that had endless benefits for cultivators. Even if the purple crystal jade essence had not been condensed by any expert, it was still priceless. and the young girl's bracelet clearly contained extremely powerful runes, making it even more immeasurable. Just the storage space alone was countless times greater than that of a high-grade storage ring, not to mention the various wonderful uses it contained. Third update. Dark Mountain is riding at the speed of a tortoise, unable to achieve a burst of 4 or 5 chapters. Without a stockpile of chapters, this is pretty much Dark Mountain's limit. From yesterday until now I've slept for a total of 5 hours. Tomorrow morning the update might be late. If you have monthly votes, please support Dark Mountain. Thank you. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidien.com to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 103. Clear sky is yang, heavy earth chi is yin chun. How and the young girl spoke at the same time. Move, fire, light, thunder, day, man, life, sun, heaven are the 9 suns, still, water, darkness, rain, snow, night, woman, death, moon, earth are the 9 yin 9 revolving heavenly sun. Secret art, first revolution, yang birth, 9 revolving earth yin secret art, first revolution, calm heart, birth of yin chun. How and the young girl read the first revolution of the secret art almost at the same time, as well as the scene they would face after entering the door. Their hearts were like a mirror. Walking through the hazy door, the two stepped into their respective palaces. One was a space formed by pure white yang yuan stones, the other was a space formed by pure black yin yuan stones. Chen Hao looked at the wall. It was also at this moment that the surrounding aura suddenly surged and condensed into a wisp of extremely pure light. Like a brush, it floated to the wall in front of Chen Hao. Then, a thin line gradually gave birth to a figure at an astonishing speed, as if it was drawing a painting. When this figure with a strange posture completely appeared in front of Chen Hao's eyes suddenly widened, his mind surging. Shoo! Chen Hao sucked in a breath of cold air, extremely shocked as he said, "What a beautiful girl! Fortunately, it's just a person in the painting. If there really was such a girl in the world, what would happen? I'm afraid even this inheritance of the ruins is really interesting, to use this beautiful girl to mess up my state of mind? If it was a real person, I'm afraid I would really be a little confused, but it's just an illusory figure." Chen Hao's deep black eyes shone with rays of light, his voice clear and bright as he said. But although he said so, Chen Hao's gaze was still fixed on the lifelike young girl in the painting. Her eyebrows were distant, her eyes were clear, and her figure was graceful, especially those eyes. Even if it was just a painting, it had already caused ripples in Chen Hao's calm heart. This was a phenomenon that had never happened in the past. The two of them did not have it, and the current him also did not have it. But now it was real. Chen Hao coldly snorted and took a deep breath. In his mind, he decisively swung his sword and cut off the ripples in his heart. Relying on his rock-solid willpower and temperament, he instantly adjusted himself to a state of complete focus. The first mantra of the 9 revolutions heavenly sun technique that he had just seen appeared in his mind. His eyes shot out like lightning and suddenly stared straight into the girl's eyes. Boom! When his eyes met those lifelike and beautiful eyes, a mysterious aura suddenly erupted from the girl's eyes, turning into 2 beams of light that connected with Chen Hao's eyes. At the same time, Chen Hao's eyes became sluggish for a moment, as if he had fallen into a strange realm. Immediately after, a beautiful and graceful figure appeared in his mind. In his mind, a set of fist techniques appeared. According to the inscription, it was a body technique. Hi! Chen Hao almost lost control of his mind. Fortunately, he was mentally prepared since long ago, and he suddenly exploded out with a loud shout. He moved according to his heart's desire, imitating the peerless figure in his mind as he moved about, punched, and kicked. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, sweat dripped down like rain and he panted like an ox, but Chen Hao clenched his teeth and completely immersed himself in this powerful body technique. Chen Hao was very clear that this was the inheritance of the ruins. The first style of the 9 revolutions heavenly sun technique was only the beginning. Only by using all his strength to comprehend and break through would he be able to quickly obtain the inheritance and leave the ruins. In the beginning, Chen Hao's body was always half a beat away from the image in his mind. His dancing figure also had a lot of jerkiness and sluggishness, but as time passed, Chen Hao's figure gradually became one with the image in his mind, achieving the state of body and mind as one. After a full 6 hours, Chen Hao's body and mind as one had reached the state of body and mind as one, forgetting the body technique in his mind, forgetting that he was dancing along with it. A faintly discernible mysterious aura gradually emitted from Chen Hao's body. Chen Hao did not have any consciousness at all. After finishing the last round, he naturally stopped. The image in his mind disappeared, but Chen Hao was completely exhausted. With a plop, he lay on the ground with his limbs facing the sky, staring at the image of the young girl that was slowly disappearing on the wall. When the first image of the young girl disappeared, the mysterious brush began once again. It was still that beautiful girl, but in a completely different posture. Chen Hao knew that he had already passed the first style, and now it was time for the second style. It's the hateful meditation again, Yu doesn't like it. The young girl's pink and attractive cherry lips pouted. Looking at the wall in front of her, she said, "If I had known, I wouldn't have come in. But Yu can't go out. If too much time passes and father and grandfather find out that Yu sneaked out, that would be bad." After the young girl walked through the door, she said with a hint of coquettishness. Obviously, this young girl did not take the ruins seriously at all. She came in because she thought it was fun, but after coming in, she had to practice the most hateful meditation, so she was not happy. But the young girl was very clear that if she wanted to leave the ruins, she had to master the 9 revolutions Earth-Een formula. Otherwise, even she would not be able to leave the ruins. Hiss, at this time, there was a fluctuation in the air. Like Chen Hao, the same scene appeared in front of the young girl. Huh! The young girl suddenly opened her clear and beautiful eyes wide in surprise. A figure slowly appeared in front of the young girl. His figure was not tall, but he was very handsome. Especially his eyes, they were as bright as stars, emitting a sense of disdain and arrogance that came from the depths of his bones. He was obviously not old, but his eyes made the young girl's heart tremble. He's the owner of the ruins? So handsome. He doesn't look as old as Yu, but he seems very powerful. Grandfather said that Yu is a cultivation genius that only appears once in 1,000 years, but Yu is only a 9th-grade martial saint. The gap between us is so big. Grandfather must be trying to make Yu happy. Yu needs to quickly cultivate. Since you are the owner of the ruins, don't make things difficult for Yu. Quickly let Yu master it, or else grandfather and father will scold you. The young girl stared at the young man on the wall and said innocently. As she spoke, she slowly sat cross-legged in front of the portrait. The first cycle of the 9 revolutions Earth-Een formula appeared in her mind, and she stared at the eyes of the portrait. One moving, one still. They started at the 2 ends of the ruins. Neither of them knew of the other's existence, and they did not know that the portrait they were looking at was the other. But they had the same goal, which was to quickly obtain the inheritance of the ruins and leave the ruins. It had to be said that the super-expert who left behind the inheritance of the ruins had great abilities and wisdom that ordinary people could not imagine. He did not miss any details. Even the portrait they saw was replaced with the other's figure. Bang! 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 At the edge of the Magic Cloud mountain range, origin power and mental energy crisscrossed as hundreds of figures fought together. Zhao Yunfei, Fang Qing, Lu Yunfeng and the others were among them. Their faces were filled with anger as they fought and retreated. Rumble! A terrifying explosion suddenly exploded in the void. Zhao Yunfei's figure was immediately pushed back, and a mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. Ha 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 ha! The number one new disciple of the Zhen Yuan kingdom is only SOSO, Yi Mingho, what are you doing? Fang Qing furiously urged her mental energy to catch the seriously injured Zhao Yunfei, and said angrily. After the aura of the ruins disappeared, everyone knew that the mission had ended early due to the changes in the ruins, and they returned. But they did not expect that when they reached the edge of the Magic Cloud mountain range, they were stopped by Yi Mingho and the others of the Deqian kingdom. Both sides were proud geniuses, and the flames of war were about to be triggered. What am I doing? This crown prince has already said that this is only a warm-up before the new talent ranking battle. It's that kid's fault for ruining this crown prince's plans. Ha ha! Let's go. Now that we've beaten up the younger ones, the older ones will be here soon. They're not people we can deal with. Yi Mingho. Just you wait, Zhao Yunfei, will definitely avenge today's humiliation in the new talent ranking battle 1.5 years later. Save it, this crown prince has only just stepped into the martial emperor realm, and you're already no match for me. During the new talent ranking battle, you're not even fit to carry my shoes. Yi Mingho want to be number one. Why don't you go back and tell the advanced disciples of the new show hall that they're called Dongfang Jian, by Lishi Zhao Yunlong. Oh, Zhao Yunlong should be your elder brother, right? This crown prince, Yi Mingho, will defeat them and the advanced disciples of the other kingdoms and ascend to the top of the new talent ranking battle of the 8 kingdoms. Ha ha! As Yi Mingho spoke, his body turned into a strand of lightning. He brought the great Qian kingdom's disciples and rapidly returned to his own kingdom. Only his domineering and insufferably arrogant voice could be heard. This time around, there were a total of 50+ disciples from the Zhenyuan kingdom's new show hall. At this moment, all of them had extremely humiliated expressions on their faces. Countless of them were injured, and several of them were seriously injured. It could be said that they were completely suppressed by the great Qian kingdom. If it wasn't for the fact that they had a transmission talisman to notify the experts of the new show hall, it was likely that they would not only be seriously injured. There was blood at the corner of Zhao Yunfei's mouth. He was tightly clenching his teeth and his eyes were spitting out flames. Before he entered the royal new show hall, he had already been a martial emperor for half a year. Now, an entire year had passed. He had already reached the peak of rank 1 martial emperor. However, Yi Mingho, who had clearly just become a rank 1 martial emperor, had actually defeated him in a berserk manner. There was still a year and a half before the biennial new talent ranking battle of the 8 kingdoms. Although Zhao Yunfei was a newly advanced disciple, he was already the number 1 expert among the initial disciples. He believed that during the new talent ranking battle, he would definitely be able to obtain a good ranking. At the very least, he would definitely be able to reach the peak among the initial disciples. This was already a very high goal. After all, within the 8 kingdoms, the Zhenyuan kingdom's strength was only average, or even slightly below average. However, he never expected that Yi Mingho would actually be so arrogant as to aim for the top of the new talent ranking battle. Roar! The humiliated Zhao Yunfei's heart of an expert was not destroyed by Yi Mingho. Instead, he faced the sky and let out a furious roar. His body suddenly turned into a ray of light and flew toward the depths of the Demon Cloud mountain range. What I've done today, I will definitely return it 100-fold in the future. What? Chen Hao might have entered the remnants? After Yi Mingho and the others left, after Zhao Yunfei left in humiliation, Fang Qing, who had clearly displayed her astonishing strength in the battle earlier, became the core of the crowd. Together, they returned to the royal new show hall. In less than 4 hours, the expert that had rushed over to the royal new show hall was actually Huang Qi, the gatekeeper uncle. Furthermore, he was the only one. When Huang Qi heard what Fang Qing had said, he immediately spoke in shock. P.S. First update. I'm not sure what time the next update will be. Wushan has finished writing one chapter after another. Not aiming high, giving himself pressure. This time, Wushan will do his best. Friends with monthly votes, please vote for Wushan. Give Wushan some encouragement and passion. Thank you. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidien.com to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 104. Beginning to work hard on the third update, seeking monthly votes and subscriptions for support. Thank you. Thank you for yesterday's Mo Ching E5664, Lone Star and Moon 4364, Passionate Love 588, Chuan Liang Wu Z 588, Rosy Cheeks 588, Newbie Post 588, Fong by 100, Forever Unchanged Me 100, Demon King's Tears, Oxjuan, Book Lin Fei, Dream is already dead, for their support. Thank you. Half a month later. Yang was born when the body moved, Yin was born when the heart was still. Chun Hao and the young girl were cultivating at two different places. One was still and the other was moving. Although the two of them did not have the slightest connection, but their cultivation seemed to be inextricably linked and involved. They actually completed the first revolution at the same time without a difference of a second. A hazy and illusory door appeared on the wall. At the same time, the second revolution of the 9 Heavenly Sun technique and the 9 Earth Yin technique appeared. After the two of them looked at the mantras, they stepped through the door at the same time. After entering the strange room, the other person's image appeared on the wall again. The image was sitting cross-legged with a spirited gaze. They did not know if it was an illusion, but the two of them felt that the other person was staring at them. This feeling came from the subconscious. It was like looking through time and space. Looking back for 100 years, meeting for 1,000 years. In the other person's eyes, they could see the depths of the other person's soul. Chen Hao was shocked by the purity of the pair of eyes. He saw an extremely pure soul. He saw the girl's innocence and every frown and smile of the girl. The girl could see more from the young man's firm and cold eyes. It was an unyielding soul, a young man who looked down on the world and looked down on the common people. He seemed emotionless, but she could feel the warmth and gentleness in the depths of his eyes that were deliberately sealed in ice. The shock in the girl's heart was not something that Chen Hao could compare to. The joy in her heart was also not something that Chen Hao could understand. The slightly childish but extremely intelligent girl stared at the pair of eyes and actually laughed out. It was as if she had discovered the secret hidden in the depths of the other person's heart. She muttered, "You can't hide it from Yu. Yu understands you. Seeing that Yu understands you, quickly let Yu comprehend it, he." When the two of them seemed to have telepathy, they sat down cross-legged facing the image at the same time. When they fused the second revolution of the mantras, their eyes emitted a light and connected with each other's image. Boom boom, walla, on one side, he felt as if he was in a sea of fire, the raging flames burning all over his body. On the other side, he was drowned by a bone-chilling flood. Chen Hao felt as if he was being burned by a raging fire, while the girl felt as if she was being invaded by ice water. One fire, one water. Time passed slowly. Magic Cloud Mountain Range, where the entrance to the relic appeared. 3 figures stood there. The 3 people were Huang Qi, Helian Wuzi, and Mo Yui. "It's been 2 months. Let's go," Huang Qi said. "The new show hall's year-end ranking competition is about to begin. You two must participate." "Uncle Emperor, can he still come out?" In merely 2 months' time, the aura around Helian Wuzi's body clearly had a shocking increase. Even if she didn't deliberately release it, her entire body was enveloped in a hazy, icy aura. Her entire person seemed to be situated within a faint mist, giving people a kind of faintly discernible feeling. Coupled with her exquisite and mature figure and beautiful little face, She was like a fairy that had descended to the mortal world and could ascend at any time. But at this moment her brows were deeply furrowed, and she asked with a trace of worry. "Boss will definitely come out." Mouyui's expression was cold, and his voice was as sharp as a sword. "Of course," Huang Qi also said with extreme certainty. "That kid's physical aptitude and comprehension are all first-rate. Since this relic has chosen him, Old Man believes that he will naturally be able to come out. It's just a matter of time. At most. How long? Last time you said 1 month, then it became 2 months. Now it's already been 2 months. Are you going to say 3 months? What made Huang Qi's old face turn red was that Helian Wuzi's ethereal and cold voice actually said so. Cough cough. Little Wu, although Old Man knows that he will definitely come out, but as for what kind of relic this relic is and what kind of inheritance it has, Old Man has no way to judge. You only need to know one thing. The later he comes out, the more powerful the inheritance of this relic is. Once he comes out, his strength will also have an astonishing increase. What you and little Mo have to do is not to wait, but to do your best to cultivate. This is also the reason why Old Man forced you to complete the mission in these 2 months. Otherwise, when he walks to the next level, he'll leave all of you far behind. In the end, he'll become a person of 2 different worlds. Huang Qi had always been frivolous, but this time, there was a rare solemn expression on his old face. Hearing Huang Qi's words, Helian Wuzi and Mouyui's expressions were different, but their eyes shone with a trace of light. When Helian Wuzi and Mouyui learned that Chen Hao had stepped into the relic and did not know how long it would take, or whether he would be able to come out, they stubbornly walked out of the royal new show hall and went to the place where the entrance to the relic had appeared. Fortunately, with Huang Qi, the 2 did not delay their cultivation. Almost every day, they hunted demonic beasts in the Demon Cloud mountain range or meditated beside Huang Qi. When Huang Qi, this old man, was waiting for Chen Hao, he became the bodyguard, sparring partner, and instructor of the 2. This was something that no one expected. Even Huang Qi did not expect it. Huang Qi was the gatekeeper uncle of the new show hall. Although he had a special identity, and in the new show hall, even the hall master and vice hall master would not care about him, that was after all his duty. But this time, after the new show hall received the news that Chen Hao might have entered the relic, he applied to go and take a look. But he did not expect that the hall master and vice hall master would let him guard Chen Hao so easily. When did the hall master and vice hall master care so much about Chen Hao? It was also because of this that the 3 of them formed the current team. So, in this year's end-of-year competition, all of you have to work hard for me and get good results. Otherwise, if Old Man's guess is not wrong, when that kid comes out, he will definitely scold all of you. Mouyui's expression changed, as if there was a lingering fear in his heart. It was obvious that Chen Hao had left a shadow in his heart after more than a month of special training for him and Helian Wuzi. But Helian Wuzi's face instantly flushed red. Scolding? If only it was as simple as scolding. I believe that with your current strength, entering the top 20 shouldn't be a problem. Xiao Wu has already comprehended the 3 types of energy of water, ice, and mist. That is to say, she has completely comprehended the basic and derivative properties of the water attribute. Although she is still unable to display the true power of these 3 types of energy, as long as she uses them properly, her battle strength can increase by several times. It is even possible to enter the top 10. Little Mo is also not bad. You have actually comprehended the metal attribute, which complements your sword intent. As long as you maintain an incomparably sharp heart, entering the top 20 will not be a problem. In the last few days, if you can break through to 7th stage Martial Emperor, your ranking may be even higher, Huang Qi said. At this moment, Helian Wuzi and Mouyui had already stepped into 6th stage Martial Emperor under the special training of the super instructor, Huang Qi. Even Huang Qi was a little surprised by this speed of improvement. Of course, after Huang Qi saw the two's desperate cultivation method, he also understood. Even he could not help but admire Chen Hao, who was only 13 years old. I will enter the top 10. Helian Wuzi said coldly. Me too. Moyue also said. Let's go. Huang Qi waved his hand, and two boundless mental energy enveloped Helian Wuzi and Moyue. The three figures immediately soared into the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. After flying for a few miles, Huang Qi turned his head and stared at the place where he originally stood. He muttered, "This damned place is full of strangeness. I keep feeling that someone is watching." Not long after Huang Qi and the others left, two figures strangely appeared at the place where the entrance of the remnant appeared. "We can basically be sure that young Miss is in this remnant," one of them said. "Senior, I don't think so. What do you mean?" With young Miss's talent and comprehension, how could this kind of low-level remnant take 2 months? Moreover, young Miss is already a 9th-stage martial saint, a super genius who is only one step away from stepping into the martial god realm. I really don't understand, in this kind of place, what kind of remnant can stump young Miss. What you said makes sense. But don't forget, there are many experts with strange characters in this world. It is not impossible for a high-level remnant to be left in this place. If young Miss is really in this remnant, then it will be fine. If something unexpected happens, unexpected? Who in this world dares to touch young Miss? Moreover, young Miss sneaked out. Even the sect master doesn't know, so it is even more impossible for the opposing forces to know. With young Miss's cultivation of a 9th-stage martial saint, do you think young Miss will encounter danger in this kind of place? Senior is right. However, I still have some doubts. The old man who has been guarding here for 2 months should be able to confirm that one of their disciples has entered the remnant. However, under normal circumstances, the inheritance of a remnant will choose one person. If young Miss enters, there will be 2. How is this possible? That's because you're ignorant. Under normal circumstances, the inheritance of a remnant will indeed be one person. However, that is because it is very difficult to meet 2 people at the same time. The other person who entered the remnant will definitely meet the requirement. As for our young Miss, is there a remnant that does not meet the requirements? It is not a big deal to enter at the same time. Don't worry too much. In the end, the one who obtains the inheritance of the remnant will definitely be young Mississippi. The one who enters is just an ant in front of young Miss. He should not die. With young Miss's temperament, she will definitely bring him out. Then we will just wait here. Of course, we are not the only ones who came out to look for young Mississippi. Anyway, we have already received the approval of the sect master. We don't need to participate in the year-end test to obtain the benefits of a 2nd-stage disciple. This is a good thing. If we can bring young Miss back, the reward will be even higher, haha. The 2 looked to be around 30 years old. They were both dressed in green and had a mysterious rune mark on their chests. It seemed to be the symbol of a sect. Although the 2 restrained their aura and looked like ordinary people. However, the light that occasionally flashed in their eyes was as bright as the stars. If Huang Qi saw the symbol on their chests, he would definitely be extremely shocked. Unfortunately, Huang Qi, who was considered an expert in the Jinyuan kingdom, did not notice the 2 of them staying nearby for 2 months. It was only his subconscious intuition that he felt that someone was watching. 2 months later, light versus darkness. 4 months later, lightning versus rain and snow. 7 months later, day versus night. 10 months passed in a hurry. The 2 of them successfully cultivated the 5th revolution at the same time. Stepping into the 6th revolution, male and female. P.S. Today's monthly votes are only 2 or 3. Have pity on Wushan. Brothers and sisters with monthly votes, please support them. Thank you very much. Wushan will work hard to go to the third update. Please. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 105. Fifth Revolution. 10 months. Chun Hao's body was filled with a surging and vigorous energy. 10 months of bitter cultivation, especially the fourth layer of lightning, had caused his already strong physical body to feel as if it had been cleansed and reborn. Even if he did not use any origin power or spirit power, Chun Hao was confident that he could defeat a rank 7 martial monarch with just the strength of his physical body. His muscles were not majestic. They were streamlined and filled with beauty. However, as long as he used a bit of strength, his muscles would naturally condense into one, condensing all of his strength into a single point. Other than his physical body becoming stronger, Chun Hao had also reached rank 9 martial monarch. Intent and martial monarch were both at the peak of rank 9 martial monarch. 5 new meridians appeared in his body. With every breath he took, he could absorb a large amount of spiritual energy. At this moment, if he were to face Zhao Yunfei, a rank 1 martial monarch, Chun Hao was 100% confident that he could defeat him. However, even after the fifth revolution, Chun Hao was still unable to step into martial monarch. This also made Chun Hao understand how difficult it was to break the barrier from martial monarch to martial monarch. After 10 whole months, when Chun Hao saw the hazy door of the sixth revolution, male, and the chant of the cultivation method, his heart was burning with anxiety. What did 10 months mean? He had already missed the year-end competition. This was not important. However, what about Helian Wuzi and Moyui? The former Chun Hao had a cold and emotionless appearance. In his entire life, he did not have a true friend. No one could enter his heart. Perhaps because of the influence of the former him, although the current Chun Hao was a brand new Chun Hao, a Chun Hao with 2 souls that had truly merged, he still maintained the necessary caution and indifference. Perhaps because of this caution, he especially cherished the people he acknowledged. Helian Wuzi and Moyui were. He was very worried about their current situation, especially the femme fatale Helian Wuzi. Huff! Chun Hao let out a long breath. He completely suppressed the anxiety in his heart and instantly regained his calmness. Being anxious was useless. Only by calming his heart and completely immersing himself in his cultivation would he be able to leave the ruins as soon as possible. Slowly looking at the inscription, Chun Hao murmured, "Yang alone does not give birth. Man is the spirit of all things. Male Yang versus female Yang. Illusion and reality, truth and falsehood. With yin and yang, one can perceive life and death, comprehend the sun and moon, and transcend heaven and earth. Solitary yin does not last. Man is the spirit of all living things. As for the male yang, false and real, true and false. Only when there is yang and yin can one comprehend life and death, achieve the same brilliance as the sun and the moon, and transcend heaven and earth." The young girl's clear eyes stared at the inscription in front of her as she murmured. On her beautiful little face, her eyebrows were slightly furrowed. She actually seemed to understand the Heart Sutra of over 1,000 words. In particular, the description of the cultivation scene made her feel extremely strange. False and real, true and false. Chun Hao was also frowning in contemplation. He seemed to understand. Could it be that the image materializes so that I can perceive the yin and yang? Thinking of the beautiful and lovable figure, Chun Hao's mind shook slightly, but he immediately suppressed it. After making sure that the 1,000-word Heart Sutra was firmly engraved in his mind, Chun Hao took a step towards the hazy and illusory door. Following the cultivation steps of the Heart Sutra, Chun Hao came to the front of the wall and sat down cross-legged. He slowly extended his palms and placed them on the wall. activating the 5 strange meridians formed from the first 5 transformations of the 9 revolutions heavenly sun technique. The fiery pure yang energy suddenly surged out like a river. Almost at the same time, the young girl also sat cross-legged in front of the wall and activated her 5 meridians. The icy cold pure yin energy also surged out from the young girl's palms. Kacha, 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 kacha. The hard and thick wall made of an unknown material suddenly began to crack rapidly at this moment. The cracks spread like a spider web. Boom! With a loud sound, debris flew everywhere. Almost at the same time, Chun Hao and the young girl's eyes shrank at the same time. A very clear touch appeared between their palms. Staring at the incomparably realistic image, both of their hearts trembled, but soon their eyes regained their calmness. Their respective heart sutras appeared in their minds at the same time, suppressing the shock in their hearts. The young girl felt the fiery palm. Although she quickly entered the cultivation state with her powerful cultivation talent, the shock in her heart could not be eliminated. It was too real. She really saw the owner of the ruins. Not only did she see it, she also touched it. Her keen sense of smell could even clearly smell the male scent on the other party. Chun Hao also relied on his tenacious state of mind to enter the cultivation state in an instant. Like the young girl, although he entered the cultivation state, the shock in his heart was indescribable. The icy cold and soft palms were placed on top of his palms. The faint fragrance of a virgin could be clearly smelled. The incomparably clear pair of eyes, the devastatingly beautiful face, the graceful and exquisite body, was sitting cross-legged in front of him. It was too real, so real that it made Chun Hao gasp in amazement. The moment their eyes met, Chun Hao could clearly see the shock in the pair of eyes. Pooh! But at the same time, Chun Hao originally thought that he was strong enough to slap iron into a pancake. But the moment the image in front of him was immersed in cultivation, an icy cold pure yin energy quickly submerged his body like a flash flood. At this moment, Chun Hao felt that he was so weak that he could not withstand a single blow. Before he could react, his internal organs were shaken to the point of rupturing. With a sweet taste in his throat, a mouthful of essence blood was directly sprayed onto the young girl's flawless face. Feeling the change, the young girl suddenly screamed. Out of a natural reaction, an incomparably powerful energy shield suddenly gushed out from her body. Bang! Chun Hao, who was already seriously injured in an instant, flew out like a kite with a broken string under the fluctuation of the young girl's energy without any suspense. He heavily hit the wall behind him. The moment Chun Hao lost consciousness, his eyes stared at the young girl who seemed to be extremely shocked and at a loss. If the owner of the ruins was present, he would definitely vomit blood in anger. The perfect inheritance they had set up could be said to have no weaknesses. They even believed that as long as the man and woman who passed the restriction test entered the ruins, it could be said that they would be able to obtain their inheritance with 100% certainty. Comprehending the mysteries of yin and yang and transcending the restrictions of heaven and earth. However, he had not expected that Chun Hao would be a fake among the 2 people he had chosen. Comprehending the energy of the 5 elements and operating the 5 elements was one of the conditions. Judging the age from the breath of life was the second condition. These 2 conditions were enough to confirm that the selected person was absolutely a true genius. The young girl did completely meet the conditions, but Chun Hao, his age, did meet the conditions. Comprehending the energy of the 5 elements and operating the 5 elements also met the conditions. But this guy only had this ability because he had obtained the 5 elements spiritual root. He was not a real martial sage. A small martial emperor and a martial sage fused their energy to comprehend yin and yang. What kind of concept was that? Martial emperor, martial great master, martial sage across a few streets. The gap was really too big. This directly caused Chun Hao to vomit blood and be seriously injured, and he was sent flying by the young girl. Hey, the young girl looked at the unconscious Chen Hao, whose breath of life was extremely weak. Her small face turned pale, and her mind was in a mess. She really did not understand. Wasn't this an image? Wasn't this the owner of the ruins? The incantation clearly said that as long as she fused with the pure yang energy of the image, she would be able to comprehend the existence of yang and yin. Then she would be able to break through the sixth transformation and comprehend life and death. But now the bloodstains that were shaken off by her energy were clearly visible. The owner of the ruins, that she had looked at for 10 whole months and was extremely familiar with, was really in front of her eyes. Even when she was no longer operating the 9 revolutions Earth-Yin incantation, he was still in front of her eyes. Was this still an illusion? Was it still an image? Hey, are you hurt? Wake up. You didn't do it on purpose. The young girl had never hurt anyone. It was simply inconceivable that she could have this kind of cultivation that Chen Hao completely defied the natural order. There were no cruel hunts, no life and death trials, and she had not really experienced many battles. Only during the great sect competition would she act. She had completely relied on her astonishing talent and comprehension. Oh no, his breathing and heartbeat have stopped. His internal organs have all been shattered, the young girl said in panic. After a slight pause, the young girl's body suddenly flashed with a bright green light. She lifted the unconscious Chen Hao from the air and sat cross-legged. Chen Hao seemed to come alive. Under the control of the young girl, he also sat cross-legged with his back facing the young girl. The young girl's crystal-clear and tender palm suddenly pressed against Chen Hao's life gate. Threads of pure green energy, emitting a majestic light of life, quickly merged into Chen Hao's heavily injured body. And what made the young girl slightly surprised was that Chen Hao, whose internal organs were clearly shattered, was actually slowly repairing himself. The broken cells seemed to be reorganizing. Immortal bloodline? The young girl said in surprise. Immediately, a happy smile appeared on her beautiful little face. She murmured, "You won't die. Don't be afraid, Yu will help you heal." "I'm sorry. Yu is so stupid. Don't you have the nirvana pill?" the young girl said to herself. Until she felt that Chen Hao would not die, the panicked young girl recovered her reason. The amethyst jade marrow bracelet on her wrist suddenly flashed with a purple light. A milky white jade bottle floated in front of her and opened by itself. A fiery red pill floated out. In an instant, a strange medicinal fragrance filled the entire space and slowly floated to Chen Hao's mouth. The unconscious Chen Hao, under the control of the young girl's mysterious energy, suddenly opened his mouth. The jujube-sized pill suddenly entered his mouth. At this time, the young girl still did not stop instilling energy. Instead, she was afraid that Chen Hao would be in too much pain, so she directly began to use the medicinal efficacy of the nirvana pill. If the young girl's father and grandfather were to know of this, they would be so angry that their mustaches would curl up. That was the nirvana pill that could regenerate the flesh and bones of the dead. Even if Chen Hao's internal organs were turned into a pile of meat paste, as long as his soul did not dissipate, he would be able to recover in a few minutes and be as lively as before. This was something that they were not willing to use unless they were in the most dangerous situation. But the young girl was so stupid that she did not understand the value of the nirvana pill. She wasted the precious pill that her grandfather gave her just in case on Chen Hao. Third update. Begging for monthly votes and subscriptions. Thank you. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.